what we're going to do is we are going to have some content. We are going to treat ourselves to some content. So this person, Mary Chu, right? Mary Chu. The Mary Chu. That's you. The Mary Chu. Oh, she follows me. Oh my god, that's crazy. Okay, anyway, the Mary Chu is a trans lady, and she wanted to argue with Alec Gunter about shit. And so we are blessed. We are absolutely blessed, mashallah sisters, with content today, okay, with content. This is another trans debate where Alec Gunter is incredibly intellectually outclassed and ends up fucking soy rage quitting the call once again, as per usual, well in character, nothing surprising, nothing new. I will fully disclose that I did pre-watch this. I was listening to it while I was doing the dishes. So I have listened to the duration of this, but I was listening to it and I was like, wow, guys, we have to listen to this together, okay? We have to listen to this together. And guess what, you guys? I have even better news. There's a Malcolm name drop in this conversation. So I get mentioned. Yeehaw, let's go, girls. All right, guys, we are serving some gunt. Let's begin, shall we? Let's begin. And I'm gonna put this on 1.5, okay? I know that everybody complains, everybody bitches, everybody moans, but guess what? I don't fucking care. All right, it's my stream. I can do what I want. I can do what I fucking want, and I want to watch it on 1.5 because I can, and it's a free fucking country, and you can't stop me. All right, from 2024, let's go.
Pronouns. I guess she, her, if that's easier. I stream. I look at transmedia of all kinds. I'm just interested in all that stuff. There's been a lot of there's been a lot of things that have happened. It take a long time to go through all of it.
Indeed.
But yeah, I guess so. I watched a few debates and stuff like that. I watched quite a lot of like ally content. Sorry, just give me 1 sec. I do apologize.
Sure. No worries.
No worries.
Also, chat, let me know if both of our audio is coming in okay, as always.
Here we go. All right, now we're good now. Thank you. So yeah, I guess in terms of approach, like you have a debate coming up. Do you like prepare much? What kind of things do you look at to get yourself informed? You know.
Well, we know that he doesn't look at studies to begin. We know that that doesn't happen. And we also know that he is painfully unfamiliar with any kind of trans perspective. So he probably just like talks in the mirror to practice. That's what I do. I stand in the mirror and I dramatically role play both sides of the debate. And my wife is like, can you please come to bed at 2 a.m? And I'm like, no, I have to prepare for this very important Twitter space debate tomorrow. Sorry, babe.
I guess like, you know, I'm a registered nurse, so like I have done a lot of the research already, so I just have a lot of it in my memory bank. My debate style is more.
And I will also preface by saying, after pre-watching this and not spoiling anything, teehee, no spoilers, I don't agree with Mary on most things. I would say I would probably disagree with her pretty significantly with most of her stuff and positions and takes and opinions and blah blah blah. You know, throw a dart at the board. But the problem, and this is my biggest issue with people like Alec Gunter, and I will continue to reiterate, is that it makes it so hard to agree with him because he's so fucking bad at debating trans stuff. He's just really bad at navigating these conversations and having trans debates and like making points, making arguments, whatever. So I will preface by saying that I do disagree with Mary on most all of her positions. But tragically, her intellectual debate opponent is also ill-equipped to have these conversations. So it's going to be an excruciating watch, guys. Hello.
About logicking my way through.
Do you guys see what I mean about the mouse? It's driving me nuts. Anyway, make sure you like the video, otherwise I'm gonna cry.
You know, things like anti-trans policies, because at the end of the day, things like bathroom bans, they just don't work in practice, because how are you going to enforce that? Well, let's walk through it, right? You see somebody enter the bathroom, you think that
you kill them.
You think that they're a man. Now what do you
sorry,
do?
wrong answer.
You know, I just walk through that process, things like that.
As
far as like, now I did do a little bit of preparation for a debate coming up with what's his name, Brad Palumbo, and I'm gonna do some more, because I think that he is a little bit more knowledgeable on these things, and will probably bring things up like the CAS report, which is bunk, but you have to know how to debunk that.
Also, really quickly, Alec Gunter has never appropriately debunked, quote-unquote, the CAS report. The biggest criticism of the CAS report is that they used non-peer-reviewed studies. I remember when the CAS report came out, like the biggest thing is that like the findings or the recommendations from the CAS report are really like not that big of a deal. Okay, they're really pretty milquetoast. Okay, so like overview of recommendations. Let's just go through these really quick. I don't know why this is like done so funkily here. So let's just go over this really quick. So overview of recommendations. We have the recommendations hang on, that's going to give me cancer if I don't close that. 1 second. Okay. Recommendations. So services must operate in the same standard as other services seeking seeing children and young people with complex presentations. That's fine on paper. Expand capacity through distributive service models based in pediatric services with stronger links between secondary and service specialists. Also a fine recommendation. Children and young people referred to the NHS gender services must receive holistic assessment for their needs to inform an individualized care plan. This should include screening for neurodevelopmental conditions, including autism spectrum disorder and mental health assessment. Again, fine on paper. Standard-based evidence, psychological and psychopharmacological treatment approaches should be used to support the management associated with the distress from the gender incongruence and co-occurring conditions, including support for parents, careers, siblings, appropriate. Like, and this is pretty much all of the recommendations here is like on paper, there's literally nothing really here where you're like, oh no, the horror. Like, obviously, things on paper and things presented in practice can be vastly different. We all know this to be true, right? Like, on paper, something can look really good, and then when you put it into practice, it doesn't work at all. On paper, all of the recommendations from the CAS report are actually, like, pretty milquetoast. And that's all you can really say about it. And again, Alec Gunter has never substantially debunked the CAS report. The only criticism for the CAS report is that it uses non-peer-reviewed studies. That's it. That's really it, okay? Sorry. Continuing.
Things like that. So, just look at, I kind of just get some people from my Discord community together and we do a little bit of research together, and that's kind of how I go about it.
Yeah, I got you.
This is like what conspiracy theorists do with vaccines. They're like, yeah, I got together with some of my friends, we smoked a ton of meth, and then, we just did our own research. Very cool.
Specifically the CAS report, as you just mentioned, use that as an example. Like, where'd you get the stuff from to show that it's bunk? You know what I mean?
Well, Yale University did a pretty good breakdown of it, and they have a good summary of like why it's not, something that we can really use as an official source for our how we make judgments about trans healthcare and legislation. I can pull it up.
Should we take a peek at that? What is that? The Yale review of the CAS report. Let's take a peek at that, shall we? An evidence-based critique of the. Oh my God! Oh, it's only 39 pages. I guess that's not bad. Okay, so. Let's go down to the conclusion because I am not reading all this. Let's just see. Okay. Upon review of the methodology and conclusions of the York SR, it became clear that the authors were unaware of essential concepts in youth care. In SR, the puberty pausing medications, for instance, the author or reviews author determined that a reduction in gender dysphoria was appropriate outcome as discussed in Section 5. Puberty pausing medications themselves are not gender affirming. They simply pause. Well, they are gender affirming. That's stupid. What else do we have in here? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. The earliest flaws in this process begin with ambiguity for the rest. Conclusion. The CAS report was commissioned to address the failure of the UK's National Health Service to provide timely, competent, and high-quality care for transgender youth. These failures include long wait times, often years, and resulting in delayed timely treatment by skilled providers. That's a general criticism of public health care. That's a general criticism, but I agree. Wait times are an issue, sure. Instead of effectively addressing the issue, however, the reviews, process, and recommendations take out an ideological position on care for transgender youth that is deeply at odds with the review's own findings by the importance of individualized and age-appropriate approach to medical treatments for gender dysphoria in youth, and consistent with the consistent with the international standards of care issued by WPATH and the clinical practice guidelines issued by the Endocrine Society. Far from evaluating the evidence in a neutral and scientific manner, the review obscures key findings and misrepresents its own data and is rife with misinterpretations. So the critiques of the CAS report are like I said, a lot of the issues are going to be methodological. A lot of them are going to be like, you're not using peer-reviewed data. The people that wrote it were very obviously biased. But if you look at the recommendations, there's nothing wrong with the recommendations per se. Like, because all of those recommendations could have been put forward by WPATH and everybody would have been like, these actually sound great. It's because they came from the CAS review is what everybody has an issue with. But the recommendations on their own, in a vacuum, they're really not that controversial at all. But anyway, let's go.
Put up real quick if you'd like.
That's fine. I mean, I can look at that later as well. I'm kind of on the fence, I guess, with the CAS review.
Sure, that's fair.
It's just an example,
It is probably the most recent and most official piece of anti-trans research that has been done. And, to its credit, it seems very official. It seems, the transphobes love using it. But I have it pulled up right here. It's like, it doesn't follow established standards for evaluating evidence and evidence quality. It misinterprets and misrepresents its own data.
Travis says the CAS report used AI to make out a non-binary child to fearmonger about. Yeah, I mean, you can have, I think that methodological critiques are completely fair to point out and call attention to and criticize. I think that's completely fair. But the problem is with the CAS report specifically is that the findings or the recommendations that were put forward following its completion or whatever, those recommendations are very like milk toast. It's like we should have individualized care. We should do holistic treatment. We should do wraparound all intensive services. We should screen for other psychological conditions like blah blah blah. Like these, they're pretty like meh. It's not like we should kill every trans person that tries to. It's really not like that crazy. Obviously, again, in practice, totally different for sure. But the cast report recommendations themselves, there's nothing wrong with them. So,
and like I tend to trust the researchers from Yale pretty highly. So. There's like 10 of them on here that all contributed to this. So it's, it's a pretty...
He knows all of them personally.
Yeah, so it's kind of because it comes from somewhere like Yale. Is that kind of a big pushing point, I guess?
Well, it just comes from people who are in the field and know this stuff. And it also aligns with the vast majority of research we have on trans care. So, like things like the suicide rate and where that...
That's kind of a bad precedent to set, right? Well, it already agrees with the existing research, therefore I'm going to trust it. It's like, yeah, you can identify trends going in a certain direction and what have you, but to just say wholesale, like, nope, I agree with it because it agrees with all the conclusions that I already believe to be true is probably not the vibe, but yeah.
The suicide attempt rate and where that comes from. Transphobes will argue, well, it's because of trans care. It's because you're trying to affirm them. When that's not the case. All the research on that shows that it is largely from trans people in their community not affirming them. So it's the opposite of what transphobes are saying. So, like it's not just that they're from Yale. It's that this aligns with the overwhelming majority of research that we have, along with testimony from the overwhelming majority of trans people.
Also, because I know everybody is going to bitch and moan and whine. One, I'm being incredibly nitpicky, and I know that I am. And the reason that I'm being incredibly nitpicky is because cis people who posture themselves as know-it-all fucking, Joe Schmo allies or whatever the that these people have to be held to a higher standard of representing trans issues, trans statistics, blah, 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 because it's like you are literally inserting yourself into the conversation and speaking as an authority with doing the bare minimum, essentially, to get to a point of knowledge to make these arguments effectively, which he does poorly. So I understand that I'm being a hater. I understand that I'm being a bitch. I understand that I'm being, like, overly critical. I'm doing it on purpose, and I'm very aware, okay? I'm being very pedantic, okay?
Right. Yeah, I mean... Yeah,
and if you don't like it, f*** off.
Trans experiences seem very like polarized. One thing that was interesting.
Polarized
you say, so as in. Let me just think a sec. Sorry.
Yeah, you're fine.
So you've got kind of a very specific kind of narrative. I say narrative. It's just the word I'm using, but like that it works a very specific way, and that it's all about like the gender identity, etc., etc., etc. And I think there's a growing amount of trans people that actually don't really subscribe to that.
A growing amount.
Yeah. I think there's a lot more of us that kind of. We want to see more before subscribing to a theory about.
You know what I want? I want research. I want somebody to go into like trans-related spaces and do like and like collect data on this, because I am curious, because I have noticed that there is like kind of a growing trend, at least, anecdotally, because we don't have like data on this, for people like kind of moving away from self-ID in general and leaning more towards like what would colloquially be referred to as like transmedicalism and shit. Like I am really curious, because at least in my opinion, in the spaces that I participate in, it seems like that is kind of where people are leaning a little bit more. But obviously we can only go off of our anecdotal understandings of these and like the spaces that we're in and so on and so forth. And in this instance specifically, I would say that being trans gives you like a wicked upper hand in this, because people like Alec Gunter aren't like hanging out in like trans spaces. Like they're pretty well gatekept. Okay. So if you're trying to join like a trans group to like talk about trans discourse and shit like that, you're going to have a hard time like assimilating into one of those groups, or even getting into one of those groups if you're not trans. Like there's plenty of groups that I've been in where it's like there are no cis people, and if they are, they're like lying in wait and they're hiding and just being like haters lurking in the background. So I would trust like a trans person's understanding of this more than I would trust a cis person's, just because of the kind of spaces that they inhabit. So
about something in our brain that we can't really prove, you know what I mean?
No, I don't actually.
Okay, it's not an important point.
Sure.
But yeah, with the what you were saying about the CAS review, what would you say you define anti-trans as in terms of anti-trans research?
Anything that restricts the rights and I guess safety of trans people in general, or tries to otherize them. Things like saying that I don't know if this is in the CAS report, frankly, but things like autogynephilia. That
has he not even read it?
That's kind of a farce, and people will throw that around and try to sexualize trans people and say, well, it's just a sexual fetish, and autogynephiles are trying to walk around in public and get their get their rocks off to people seeing them as a woman, when that's simply not happening. Like, it's things.
I'm going to be honest. Yeah, I haven't actually heard that narrative. I guess I watch certain people who are a bit more into the autogynephile thing and sort of see it very differently to just blokes going out there like, look at me, I'm a woman,
You haven't heard of the...
So I think it runs a bit deeper, and I think it's really just a theory, ultimately. I don't know if I'd say it's anti-trans by nature. It can be used that way.
Well, the vast majority of the time it is, and it's been debunked too, because it's like they've asked, like the way that autogynephilia was, I guess, for lack of better terms, diagnosed is a questionnaire, right? And when
This is when I decided that I had to have girl time today and watch this with you guys. Because again, we have no idea what we're talking about. Autogynephilia was tested with phallometrics. That was where they stuck a little blood flow checker on guys' wieners, and then they had them put on lady clothes, and it detected whether or not they were becoming aroused from wearing lady clothes. So it didn't even know how autogynephilia was originally tested for, which is delicious tea, guys.
they gave this questionnaire to cis women, 90% of them, I believe, I'd have to relook at the number, but it's like 90% of them also would have been diagnosed with autogynephilia. So
Does that debunk it?
I think it does, unless you want to say that all those cis women also have autogynephilia, in which case, what's the point?
Maybe.
Like, what's the point of pointing it out, right?
Yeah, I mean,
It just seems
I guess-
pointless at that point.
Well, the differing factor, I guess, is that those are females, and it's a male category. You know what I mean?
But it's not. It seems
I guess-
pointless at that point. What do you mean it's a male category?
shit.
They have the
Well,
exact same
AGP.
criteria.
Yeah, but it's being applied to males, not females. If you know what I mean. That's the differing factor between those two populations, I guess.
Okay, but you're judging them by exactly the same criteria for autogynephilia, and it's
I mean, hey.
showing up that the overwhelming majority of cis women also technically have it.
Well, maybe that's the case. I don't know. I need to look more into it. Like, I haven't looked at bone chart for a while, to be honest.
Okay, it's interesting.
I don't know how pedantic I want to be here, but like the contention here is that like you will say, or it's often said that women, like cis women, will have the same kind of reaction, or they fit in the same category as autogynephilia. But that's kind of like baseline, right? Like that would be like a quote unquote normal response to that, where it's like if you're a woman and you enjoy like being perceived as a woman, or you find yourself sexually desirable as a woman, that's kind of like congruent with your quote unquote natural state of being. So it's different in the sense where if you're somebody who is assigned male, and you are sexually aroused by the thought of being a woman, treated like a woman, fucked like a woman, whatever, that would be like a different metric entirely. But again, I don't know how pedantic I want to be, okay?
You should look into it.
Yeah, oh no, I have a fair amount. There's a guy called Ray Alex Williams I quite like on YouTube who
Oh, that guy
actually goes
sucks.
into detail, and I'm not sold on it, but it's it's another theory to me.
Sure.
Do you think that like the gender identity theory has been like proven?
The gender identity theory.
Yeah, the theory that your gender identity is this, and your body is something other than that.
Well, I'm a gender abolitionist, and my view of gender is that
Also, I will be so clear, I hate cis gender abolitionists, okay? So if that's you, fuck you, okay?
it's a useless construct of society, but as long as it's around, we should like point it in a direction that gives us the most utility possible. And to me, that just means, giving trans people the same rights as cis people.
What's the utility in that?
Well, I mean, if we don't do that, then how are you going to enforce things like bathroom bans?
Well,
Well, I mean, if gender doesn't exist, then I don't know why you'd be worried about bathroom bans.
Because
excellent point. Again, I don't agree with Mary on most things, but like, this is a really good question. And this is a big reason why I don't like cisgender abolitionists, is because, like, it's true. If you want to live in a post-gender society, and that's your ideal and that's what you're striving for or whatever, why the fuck would you care about bathrooms? Why would you care about sexuality? Why would you care about any of this? There doesn't need to be equal protections for gender because there is no gender in your ideal society or whatever. To answer Lemon Time's question, gender abolitionists believe that like gender is a useless category, like a shit fuck waste of time, and that we should no longer have like gender as a category, and we shouldn't enforce gendered behavior in either direction. Yeah, it's kind of imagine like anarchy, but with gender. Okay, where like anything can be anything and nobody gives a fuck. Okay, fuck no, I'm not playing Fortnite. I'm not gay. Come on, don't say that about me. God. Haters.
you're restricting people from being able to use, I don't think gender is important, but to some people it is important because we live in a very gender-pilled society, if you will.
Gender-pilled.
Crudely, I guess. So, gender identity is important to a lot of people, both trans and cis. And, we assume that women use the women's bathroom, women play in women's sports, women go to places that are labeled women. And so if you're saying that people who call themselves women, who dress like women, who act like women, who look like women are not allowed to go into places that are for women, you're discriminating against them for some reason. You're saying you're not a real woman. And that causes problems. It causes mental problems. It causes societal problems. It causes rifts in communities. Like it's not good. So it's just better to assume that trans women are fully fledged, equal women, because they are.
Can males be women though?
Yes.
How so?
By saying they are women.
Bad answer. And again, Alec Gunter, the king of transgenders. If you ever argue against like transmedicalists, which Mary is, which neither here nor there. Feel how you like about that. I don't care. You have to be able to like actually answer a question instead of just going like, oh, because they identify that way. That doesn't answer the question, right? Like if you're having these conversations with people who are transmedicalists, the way that you like actually break ground and like make a salient point that they actually agree with and understand, if you want to drag them kicking and screaming onto the side of too cutism and whatever the fuck, males are a category of sex. Female is a category of sex. Gender is like downstream from sex. Okay, so there are emulated behaviors that are prescribed based on your assigned sex at birth. These behaviors and like these traits and these characteristics, you have to work backwards. So how can a male become a woman? Well, think about what it is to be a woman. What is a woman, as Matt Walsh once so eloquently asked, okay? A woman is somebody who is traditionally defined as an adult human female. Typically, I would say that my definition of a woman is somebody who is typically assigned female at birth, or like, occupies like the social role of a woman or whatever, okay? So you have to backtrack, okay? So what comprises what is a female, okay? You've got gametes, you've got internal reproductive organs, you've got secondary sex characteristics, you've got primary sex characteristics, you've got an endocrine profile. There's a bunch of different things that go into that. You can, through medical intervention, change a lot of those things. Even as far as like chromosomes, if you get bone marrow aspirations, that fucks up your chromosomes. Like you can actually fuck up your chromosomes and change them, okay? So you have people that medically alter themselves to fit the profile, at the very least, of no longer matching a biological male, okay? At the very least, you can get that argument out of people that there's no longer utility and there's no longer any like real connection to labeling this person as a biological male. You have to go backwards. If you're working with the idea that gender is here, which is downstream from sex, if you're talking to people that buy into the idea of transmedicalism, you have to go backwards. You can't stick on the gender self-ID. You have to go backwards and meet them up here with the sex and then come down from there. Like, also, tomfoolery debate coach who? Malcolm debate coach arc? When? Okay?
It's just what you say it is.
How else do you determine gender?
Well, I mean, typically it's kind of more linked to sex, and it's to do with, what gametes you have, and woman means adult human female to most people.
Okay, so how do you go about enforcing something like a bathroom ban?
Well, it's very difficult to. Places aren't going to enforce with guards because they'd have to pay them. A third bathroom solution is one thing. It takes a while, obviously.
Right.
There's no easy solution,
Right, I agree, there's not. And what would these guards even be tasked with doing? Like, if you suspect somebody who is a man of going into the bathroom, what do you even do? Like, into the women's bathroom, what do you do?
I don't know. I think the only way it work is like cis women and everyone else. I mean, I'm not.
Right.
I'm not big on like the bathroom bans. I guess I do agree with the practicality of it. It's very difficult,
Yeah. So that's why I'm saying it is more practical to simply let trans women use the women's bathroom. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I think at that point you're kind of disregarding what the women are saying. Ones that don't want to be in these enclosed spaces with like male people.
Most women, if I recall correctly, most women in the United States, first of all, are fine with trans women using the bathroom. Most cis women are fine with it. Second of all, trans women are also women. I view them as women, and so I respect them as women as well. Their voices matter as women.
Well, sure,
Respecter of women has logged on.
Like, we don't really know what the average woman thinks. I reckon most people probably don't care, but you still have to worry about the ones that do. You have to hear what their concerns are, right?
Well, what are their concerns?
Well, some of them, they don't want to be in an enclosed space with a male person. You've got I think it's the sexual assault statistics.
How do they determine whether somebody's male?
Well, they might hear a voice. They might see someone that has facial hair.
Voice? So like if somebody has a deep enough voice, you kick them out?
Well, I'm not saying kick them out. I'm saying what might cause someone to feel a bit uncomfortable. And those are the kind of things.
Well, but then you're not listening to them if you don't like kick them out, right? Or take some kind of action.
Yeah, but I mean that's a different part of the conversation, I guess. That's a bit further along.
But my point is the practicality of this doesn't pan out. Like, this is my whole point, is if you live in a gender-pilled society, the practical thing is simply let people identify the way that they want to
That's a vape hit.
They want to use, take on the gendered role that they want to take on. It's just the best thing. It's the simplest solution.
Do you think it matters at all that trans women follow the same pattern of, like, sexual assault as males, not females?
Actually, the simplest solution is to just do what they do in Europe, where it's like, you just go into the fucking bathroom. One side of the bathroom is urinals. One side of the bathroom is toilets. And then you just let people go. Okay. And bringing up sexual assault statistics is kind of moot, only because in the context of assaults that are committed in public, that's exceedingly rare. And assaults that are committed in a public restroom, those are also exceedingly rare. Obviously, rape is always bad. You should never do it. And anybody who does it is a bad person, obviously. Caveat ad infinitum. But the idea that there is like this big epidemic of people being like assaulted and raped in bathrooms and stuff, that's just not true. And kind of curtailing to public policy around the existence of like very niche issues and very small select things is really just, it's inconsequential and it doesn't really do anything. So,
males. Do you think that matters?
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh, hang on.
Assault as males, not females.
This is a good part.
Do you think it matters at all that trans women follow the same pattern of like sexual assault as males, not females? Do you think that matters?
Do they?
Yeah.
My king.
I think we're overrepresented.
My king is unfamiliar with the defeat or turf argument of male pattern violence. If you've ever ran in any of these circles, like ever interacted with like turfs or anything like that, gender critical people, this is their magnum opus. Okay, they love the male pattern violence argument. It's been quite a long time since I have treaded this treacherous path. The way that I understand the male pattern violence statistics to present is that it's similar to the Swedish study where you have trans women. They commit less crime than their male counterparts, but they still commit crime at higher rates than their female counterparts. So it's true that they are overrepresented in a lot of crime statistics, but a lot of the arguments against that are that they're usually crimes of circumstance. They're not necessarily like violent crimes or sex crimes per se. So, for example, you have people who are trans who, defer to sex work in order to pay for their transition. They're going to make up a bigger demographic of people who are convicted of that crime, and so on and so forth. So, generally speaking, the male pattern violence thing is something that people who want to argue for trans women's inclusion in, female-only spaces or single-sex spaces or what have you should be familiar with this argument, because this is the TERF's magnum opus. They love this argument.
In prisons, like incarcerated trans women, should I say?
I don't know where you're getting that data, but
and he doesn't even know where it's from.
States, the black population also makes up a much larger proportion of crimes committed against.
No.
Others, so
why do all these people always go right to black people? It's like, please, can we have one debate or one conversation where we don't link everything to black people? Like, I'm not even black and I'm tired. Like, come on, use it, please.
I don't think that this is a very good precedent to be setting. Is based upon the population's proclivity for crime is how we treat individuals that are from that community. That has historically not panned out well.
Well, the thing is, we're not doing it.
And generally speaking, this is a good point. Just because a certain demographic of people do something at a higher rate, that doesn't mean that we punish that entire demographic for the crimes of the people that are doing that, essentially. Otherwise, you would see, you could justify all kinds of crazy shit, like, we can never let men in public ever, because who commits the most rape? It's men. Okay, so should we deport all men? Should we ship all men off to live on a desert island in the middle of nowhere? No, of course not. You can make this argument with any demographic of people, and the answer is this is one of the most insightful questions that Kelly Cadigan ever asked, and it's sad because she didn't even realize she was doing it. Is that if there are people in a demographic that commit crimes, heinous crimes even, do you punish the entire demographic of people for the crimes committed by those individuals? The answer is no. In almost any circumstance, that's never the answer, right? So, unless, of course, the population that we're talking about is pedophiles, then it's okay, well, maybe then in that case, we should say that all these people, yes, sure. But you know what I mean? You catch my gist. You catch it.
By race. We're doing it by sex, and they're already segregated by sex. You know what I mean?
So why not just have a prison for sex offenders then?
I don't.
Based.
I just think that would be better, don't you?
That's true. I listen. I've been saying this for years. You guys just take them all, put them together on an island somewhere, and let them go. Just go, be free, and on Sex Offender Island. Great point.
Well, I mean, the point really is that women that are cognizant of this are going to be uncomfortable if they feel a male presence in the toilet. They're in this enclosed space with them,
If they feel a male presence, how do they feel a male presence?
Well, as in, they're using the bathroom, they hear a voice, they...
What's up, globalized gay agenda? I hope you're well, bud.
Okay, so they hear a voice.
Someone,
so let's walk through this. Let's walk through this. They hear what they perceive to be a male voice. What happens next?
Kill them.
Well, it really depends. The person has trauma, the person is uncomfortable around males in
spaces. I'm not asking where it comes from. The point is they're uncomfortable, so how do we solve this?
Well, currently, no one does anything, and the women are going to have to fend for themselves, I guess.
Okay, fend for themselves. So what does that entail?
I don't know. They'll have to start telling people to get lost. If they get assaulted for that, then I guess that's their problem then.
Telling people, you're saying that the cis women should tell the the person they perceive to be a man, let's say, to get lost? That's the solution?
I think that's the logical solution if nothing else is done, and it kind of seems like there's not really any good solution. So I think that's probably what is going to happen.
Okay, but they say get lost. The person they think is a man says, no, I'm using the bathroom. I have just as much right to be in here as you do. Now what?
I don't know. Hopefully the woman doesn't get assaulted by the man, because that would not be good.
Okay, but you're already reading the assault into it. Where's that coming from? The person's just using the bathroom. You think that they're going to be pointed out by somebody and then all of a sudden want to commit assault?
Well, it's kind of more the fears that women feel,
Right, and
I just think we need to listen to them on that.
Sure, but what's the solution? Once again, you hear somebody with a deeper voice in the bathroom, and what, you just kick them out?
Depends on the person, I guess. There is no easy solution.
Depends on the person.
Straight with you on that.
Right, so my solution is just, you kind of got to get over it, right?
Well,
some people I mean, there are cis women who have deep voices too. Should we kick them out? Where do you draw the line here?
Really not. Where the sex is.
At some point, they do just kind of have to get over it.
That's fine. Listen, if that's your position, that's fine. I think a lot of women might feel a bit differently, but hey.
But a lot of women also just have deep voices, and they're going to be discriminated against based on that if we, try to enforce anything like a trans bathroom ban. It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens, I guess, because it looks like it's going to happen in your country.
Okay, well, yeah, and it's going to end up being chaos, and frankly, I don't think it'll last.
I don't know.
This is why I say it's just more practical to view trans women as equal to cis women. They are just women.
Yeah.
And they are. And that's not even like me being like, oh, well, we have to like cede to their mindset. Like, we're not doing fantasy here. They are women.
In what way?
They say
because they told themselves. I asked you that earlier.
Yeah, see, you can't just do that stuff. It's not going to hit.
I'm a trans woman myself. I think what's happened is...
What makes you a woman then?
Nothing.
Then why do you call yourself one? Are you lying to yourself?
I call myself...
And then I'm going to be a pedant again because we're not connecting on this point. So you can look at a lot of people that kind of have this worldview and, feel how you want about how people describe their own identities, how they describe their own experiences or whatever the fuck. There are plenty of people that will say, like, I am not a man. I'm a trans man. And it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? It means I'm not a man. I'm not really a girl, really, per se, but I'm like this different category thing. It's like other, right? So if somebody says, I'm not a woman, I'm a trans woman. What they're communicating very clearly is that they don't see themselves as women. They see themselves as biological males who have physically altered themselves to, as they would describe, approximate womanhood, right? That's what they would say. And again, you can feel however you want. I personally am not in the business of ever policing how people experience or identify or articulate or talk about their own genders. I don't give a fuck. When you start saying that is the prescription for everybody, that's when I have an issue with it. But just in general, like this disconnect here is entirely a result of Alec Gunter's ignorance to a lot of these topics, is that there are plenty of people who will say, like, I'm not a woman, I'm a trans woman. And they're not treating it as like a subsection of womanhood. They're not saying like, the example often is like, trans is an adjective in the way that like black is an adjective. So you're not, you're a black woman. Okay. You're also a woman, but you're also black. It's just like a subsection of what it means to be. It's like a different type of woman, so to speak. But the disconnect comes from very clearly a lot of these people will describe their own experiences as existing purely as some other thing because they don't see themselves as women. They see themselves as trans women, which is an entirely different category to them. And again, if he was familiar with any of this at all, he would completely understand exactly where she's coming from. But he's just unfamiliar with all of this stuff. He just doesn't know enough about it to have these conversations. Would having a third gender neutral bathroom be a solution? I personally just I don't put a lot of eggs into the basket of the bathroom question because I think it's generally inconsequential. Like, there's nothing really crazy that happens in bathrooms. I think that the European solution of everybody goes, there's urinals on this side, there's stalls on this side, and there's sinks in the middle, and everybody just goes and does their own fucking thing. I think that's ideally the best solution, but, they live I suppose.
I'm a trans woman because I've gone through that whole process, and I used to call myself one.
But you just said nothing makes you a woman, so according to you, you're not a woman.
Yeah, that's correct. I'm male. I'm a trans woman at best. If someone doesn't want to call me a trans woman, then that's up to them ultimately.
But I'm confused. Are you a woman or not?
Well, I'm male.
Okay, that's not my question. Are you a woman or not?
I'm not a woman, no.
Okay, so why do you call yourself a trans woman then?
Because I've gone through that whole process. I'm post-op. You put me next to another trans woman who identifies. We ultimately are, inseparable in that way. We both have the same things done. We're both males who have had surgery.
Better idea. You have to fist fight the person in line behind you to use the bathroom. And if you lose, you have to piss outside. Gladiator bathroom rules. That's what we're doing. I've changed my mind. That's my preferred method.
So it's, it's the pattern, right?
Okay, but then you're still calling yourself a woman, but you're also saying you're not. This seems entirely inconsistent to me, is my point.
Trans woman and woman are different terms.
No, a trans woman is a type of woman. Trans is an adjective. It's like black woman.
Oh, same.
I disagree with that.
Why?
I think that types of women, they're still female, ultimately,
Okay, but sex and gender are separate concepts. They're intertwined, but they're separate concepts at the end of the day.
Why would gender trump sex, though?
Well, because how do you determine somebody's gender out in public?
I don't know. Why do you need to?
I agree. You shouldn't need to. That's why I'm a gender abolitionist. But we do. So how do you do it? How do most people do it?
I don't know. It really depends on the person and who they're looking at.
But okay, come on. But you do know. You do it too. You go out in public. You see a person, and you do what? How do you figure out whether they're a man or a woman?
I just see what I see.
Right. You see what
you
see.
If I have to pronoun someone, I give the pronouns of what I see.
Yes, that's how we do it. So my point is that's gender. That's not sex because you're not testing chromosomes. You're not looking at genitalia before you decide.
And again, I will draw back again to my point once again, is that the way that people treat gender is that it's an extension of biological sex. That because somebody has long hair, they have, bodacious curves, they have breasts, they have softer skin, you know, they have a higher pitched voice, softer facial features, stuff like that. People assume that that is a result of like a feminized puberty, which stems from sex. So all of these arguments have to come from the perspective that what everybody is talking about comes directly downstream from biological sex, because that's what people are doing. And it's relational frame theory is what it all boils down to, is like the idea that you have a concept in your head and the way that you generalize that into practical approach in the real world all comes from a specific foundation, and you generalize everything else and it falls into place. Where if I have the concept of a bear, okay, I have the animal, a bear, I have the concept of a bear. What does it mean when I say I love bears in a group full of bear hobbyists? What does it mean when I say I love bears at a gay meetup? These two things are going to have drastically different implications, but they all come downstream from the simple, like, cogent fact of bear, right? And that the bear in the gay community is, like, essentially associated with the idea of burly, hairy, big, you know, like, they all come from, like, the same core, like, idea. And everything around it relates back to that core idea. I think that I have actually an image for this. Yeah, so here we go. Trigger warning for this, okay? So this is an example of relational frame theory, is that your distinctions between different concepts are like socially driven, and depending in the situation or the circumstance that you're in, but they all derive from a single point. And the single point is bear, the animal bear. Societal distinctions exist in relation to the concept itself. So again, if we're talking about gender in this kind of concept, which Mary is, but Alec can't keep up, is that we're talking specifically about the idea in the context of sex and gender being like intrinsically related, and that they relationally generalize to each other in society. But yes.
Side, like you're going to gender the person in a certain way. You perceive a gender.
But you can intuit, right? I mean, I know that the very, what am I trying to say here? Sorry, I do apologize. The overwhelming likelihood is I have XY chromosomes. Like, you can intuit stuff, surely.
Okay, when you got in public, I'll be honest, I was listening to you a little bit while I was working out today, just to get an idea of like what you're about.
When I was at the gym, bro.
You mentioned that, you know, you would go into bathrooms and you would use the men's bathroom until men started looking at you weird for using the men's bathroom. So they saw you and they saw a woman, right?
Presumably, yeah. That doesn't mean that they actually saw a woman. They just think they did.
That's all that matters, though.
Why?
That's my point. Because they'll refer to you as a woman. They'll call you a woman. Unless you want to be called otherwise. If you tell them, like, no, I'm actually a man, you know, like, or other, whatever, non-binary, whatever, like, that's what they'll call you. They'll call you a woman.
That doesn't make me one, though.
Does it not?
No.
Why not?
Well, I still was born male. I only have a vagina because I had it done, you know?
But nobody's checking that. This is my point. In society, it is way more useful to just either make that... Well, it's the most useful to not have gender. But since we have it, it's more useful to just make an assumption rather than be like, well, time to pull out your genitalia, please. Drop your dick on the table. You know, like...
You still make an assumption that they probably have XY or XX chromosomes, because that's, like, what is it, 98,
No, okay, but this is silly. But this, you know this is silly. Nobody's looking at me thinking, yes, this individual has XY chromosomes.
No, but all the characteristics that they're looking at are downstream from the understood concept that XX chromosomes produce male fetuses, and male fetuses develop into adult males that have these characteristics. That's the assumption that we're working off of, right?
More than likely. Like, nobody thinks that. They just see me and they think man, because I'm bald.
Yeah.
Relational frame theory, it's a thing!
And
Google it!
Take all of these things into account and they think, yes, man. There's nothing to do with my sex given at birth.
I mean,
like it does,
yes.
It does a little bit in the sense that I look like this because of the testosterone.
You wouldn't have a beard.
Exactly. There you go. You got it. Kind of.
Trans men look like me as well. Take Buck Angel, for instance. Nobody would look at Buck Angel and be like, yes, this person probably has XX chromosomes and is a woman and should use the women's bathroom.
Well, some people would, tragically.
Well, yeah, but nobody assumes that. Nobody looks at Buck Angel and thinks that. They just see Buck Angel and think, yes, man, that's a man. And they're right.
Well, yeah.
And most of the time you will be right, because that's how gender works.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess you talk about utility. I don't know if I see the utility already. Like, it seems...
Oh, did I fuck up the chromosomes? Whatever. You guys know what I mean. The man chromosomes and the lady chromosomes. You know what I mean. I'm sorry, I fucked up. My bad. Cancel me.
It's like, people are what they are. It doesn't matter if they're perceived differently, you know?
But perception's reality.
No! I hate this dog shit argument. Perception is not reality. If somebody looks at me and they think that I'm, they look at me and they're like, oh my god, that guy, he's probably Mexican. That doesn't magically make me Mexican. Perception doesn't dictate reality. Like, there's still an underlying truth, which is essentially like one of the core beliefs in transmedicalism, is that there is an underlying belief as to like, or an underlying truth, I should say, to beliefs that like dictate like the reality of a situation, which is what Maya's kind of getting at, right? Is that like, yes, people might perceive me as a woman, but they would be wrong because I'm not actually a woman. I'm not a biological female. Like somebody's perception of you does not dictate like the reality of that. If somebody watches my content and they're like, this Malcolm guy is the most annoying fucking asshole in the entire world. He's a big piece of shit. I fucking hate him. He's the worst, blah, 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 whatever the fuck. That doesn't necessarily make that true. Maybe to that person, that is their reality and their perception of me. But like your perceptions of things do not dictate reality. And that is a cancerous, dangerous, absolutely brain dead fucking perspective to take on anything. Perception does not dictate reality. Ugh.
Well, no, I mean,
In terms of
Jesus,
gender, it absolutely is.
if I see someone that's 6 years old and I think they're 5, they're still 6, you know?
Okay, but you're looking at them and thinking this child is, I don't know if it's toddler or child at that point, but you know, there are things that you can't intuit, like age, okay? But gender is not age. They're not interchangeable concepts. Age is based on the
race was.
finite amount of time.
But if perception dictates reality, Alec, like you just said, if I see somebody who looks 70, but they're actually 40, well, perception dictates reality, and they're getting that senior citizen discount at Applebee's. If perception dictates reality, that's unilaterally how that works. Yes? No?
Time that you've been on this planet. Gender is...
How come race is interchangeable, but age isn't?
How come race is interchangeable? What do you mean?
Yeah, we were talking about bathrooms earlier, and it was like, well, we did this with black people and stuff.
Bro, please,
Based on
leave the black
finite
people
concept
alone.
of time. Gender is based on norms and behaviors that are typical of one or the other sex as we have prescribed it, although there have been historical instances of gender where that's not the case. It's a societal construct that's not based on a finite measurement like that.
Well, sex is based on a finite measurement, because there's two
Right,
options.
but sex and gender, well, there's not, first of all, there's more than, like there's a spectrum, but as
not
far
a
as...
And they're going to get lost in the sauce on this one, and it's going to be fucking painful because Alec Gunter can't argue these points. Because, like, the argument that these people will make is that sex is not a spectrum, that there are two sexes, and that anything that falls outside of that is either a mutation or, like, a freak accident or, like, some kind of genetic abnormality, which, like, it kind of is if you really think about it. But the way that we do, like, think of sex is that we cluster certain traits this way or that way. And that's why you have, like, the language of assigned sex at birth, is that if you have somebody who observably has, like, different genitals, they will surgically correct it to make it fit neatly into one or the other. That's why it's considered, like, quote unquote assigned. That's something that trans people stole from intersex people, which is ironic. But I digress. The issue is that what the argument being presented is that there are two sexes and everything else is an abnormality. Even within that, we still see it as a bimodal distribution of traits, because if you have somebody who has enough traits clustered in one direction to be quote unquote male, they will surgically correct any like abnormalities in order to put them in that box. And that's a cluster of traits. That's not a singular trait. So even by like, and again, but Alec Gunter can't argue these points. So it's like nails on a chalkboard the whole time we fucking listen.
Yes, there is. But as far as gender goes,
Definitely not.
like I said, it's just you assume somebody's gender. Like that's just how that works.
What's that noise? Is that his
That's in
game?
reality, though, right?
Sure it does. I mean, like if I go out in public and people perceive that I'm a man and I act like a man and I talk like a man and I do man things and you know I hang out with the bros and get a brewski and wear pants rather than a dress, that makes me a man. Whether regardless of whether I have a penis or not, it doesn't matter. That part doesn't matter in society. That's my point. It's impractical.
Society.
Right. I mean, I think we're seeing like clashes in women's rights and trans rights that suggest in some areas there is problems with that kind of approach.
I disagree.
Like sports, for
I don't think
example.
those two ever have to come into conflict.
Well, they are. It's not about whether they have to
How?
or not.
are they
Female
conflict?
spaces, sports, things like that.
Why? Okay, but what do you mean female spaces? What's the conflict there?
Well, there's women out there that want certain spaces to be female only, like say rape crisis centers, even toilets for some of them.
What if
So
a trans
it's,
woman
there's
was
a
raped?
clash there.
What if a trans woman was raped? It needs to
Go,
to a
go,
trans-
gadget,
which
rape
happens a lot, by the
discourse.
way. So,
Well, I mean, the logic would be to go to one that isn't single sex.
so what do you mean? Like they're a woman, so they would go to a women's rape center.
Well, I mean, our definition that we're working off of woman is how they look and how they dress.
Let me ask you this: a trans woman goes into a women's rape shelter or rape center or whatever to get help. Why should they turn her away?
Male sex, if it's a women's own.
How do they determine that?
I don't know. I don't work at one of those.
You don't know exactly. So you're bullshitting me. This is bullshit.
I'm not bullshitting. I'm just
Yes,
saying.
you are. You have no way of enforcing this. You're like, oh well, yes, we should protect women's spaces, but you have no way of enforcing this.
Well, we can still
bullshitting.
talk about the issues rather than.
We can talk about it, but
Go
my
straight
point
to
is,
the-
nobody has the right to know what that trans woman's packing. So unless you want to make her
It's a
drop her
single
pants
sex
at a
space,
rape center, make her drop her pants.
At a
I would
rape
say you should
center.
probably just let her in. As long as she's
Okay.
not causing other problems that are unrelated to her being trans.
Well, what if their
Right?
what if their presence is traumatizing to someone that's been raped by a
How
man?
would
and
it
is-
possibly be traumatizing?
Because it's a male person.
Meaning,
meaning they're male, like the person that raped another woman.
I understand that, but what are you implying? Which part of it is it traumatizing to somebody?
Well, the presence, let's say a woman gets raped by a male, and then she goes to what she thinks is a single-sex place, and then she finds she's in with another male, and that...
Okay, but how does she find that out? How does she find that out?
Being around that person.
But how? Like, what do you mean being around that person?
Well, most trans women don't pass 100% of the time. I certainly don't.
Okay, so what's the implication here?
The trans women are male, which is
The
just how it
implication
is.
is you're basing this on physical and you're basing this on characteristics that are outside of somebody's control. So if a cis woman goes in there and has a deeper voice or has a squarer jaw or has some facial hair, they could just as easily turn her away because she's traumatizing somebody because she has what you consider masculine features. Do you think that's fair?
I don't think that's fair, but I doubt that
You
would
think
happen.
What do you mean you doubt that would happen? I literally have seen.
I think the thing that, and this is such a touchy topic, you guys. But the reality is that in crisis stabilization services, like specifically if we're talking about like a rape shelter, that's where people go like immediately following being assaulted to be outsourced to other services, other resources, et cetera, et cetera. The preservation of the like sanctity of the milieu and the preservation of the safety of the people that are there struggling comes before everything else. And this is true, and I'm honestly shocked and flabbergasted that this isn't something that Alec Gunter knows. And this comes first and foremost in all healthcare settings. So, for example, say that there is a rape shelter, and let's say that a woman comes in who was assaulted by someone who was, we'll just say somebody who's like from the Middle East, okay? Somebody who looks like they're from the Middle East, okay? And let's say there's staff that works at this shelter that is Middle Eastern. It is well within like the bounds of practice to like stabilize this individual before you can outsource them to, you know, other services, get them different help or whatever. In immediate stabilization, that person can and will be switched to a different unit just to prevent that person from becoming re-traumatized. This is not uncommon in healthcare, especially if you're working with stabilization services. If you yourself are somewhat of a trigger to a patient for whatever reason, they will move you around, so it resolves the conflict immediately, okay? And you can have the same thing happen with people that are accessing that service as well. Like if you have somebody who is in crisis and they're accessing one of these services, and let's say that they get put in the same unit as somebody who, for whatever reason, is triggering to them, you move those people around and you don't keep them with each other. You don't have a right to access a certain area of a unit or a certain facility if that disrupts the milieu. Like milieu preservation is always going to be number one, especially in crisis stabilization services. And I'm like flabbergasted, absolutely flabbergasted that Alec Gunter does not know this as somebody who has worked in healthcare, is that this is priority number one, is preserving the well-being of people that are getting crisis stabilization services and managing the milieu in a way that like essentially quote unquote keeps the peace. Okay. So this is just like not true. Okay. If there is somebody that is disrupting the unit, whether it's like actually happening, whether it's perceived to be happening or whatever, you just keep those people away from you or you move them to a different unit. And it's the same thing with rape shelters. If you have somebody who is triggering for whatever reason, that person either gets moved to a different facility or that person is moved and kept away from everybody else, okay? Even if it's a perceived disturbance, preserving the milieu in like stabilization centers is number one, number uno, okay? Always. So, not true.
Women with facial hair.
Trans women very rarely pass as just women with deep voices.
It doesn't matter. There are also cis women who don't
It
quote unquote
does.
pass in exactly the same way that you're saying trans women often don't pass.
Cis women can't pass, they just are.
What do you mean can't pass?
This is a
Have you not
stupid
heard of
point,
people
though.
transvesti- No, have you not heard of people transvestigating cis women? It happens a lot.
I don't know. But I
It
mean,
happens. And in that case, I'm saying it's just better to not transvestigate. It's better to not question. It's just, you know.
Excellent. I just want to read this from Travis. Victims are supported regardless, and that's a good thing. It's very true. And especially like following a traumatic event, and I'm gonna yap about this for a minute, especially following a traumatic event. Like a lot of people's responses are irrational, okay? Because you're like in fight or flight. You're the biggest part of like coming down and accessing stabilization services is that you're still actively in crisis because you're anticipating like your body has that natural response where if you get hit in the face, you're anticipating getting hit in the face again, okay? So you're kind of on edge. You're kind of in the thick of it, so to speak, kind of going through it, trying to like manage your feelings, manage your emotions, come back to reality, so to speak. And trauma responses, for the most part, sometimes can be useful, but a lot of times trauma responses are irrational. And in stabilization services, a big part of that is accommodating that while people are still in the process of returning to baseline and kind of coming to terms with like their trauma and working through it and things like that. Because the reality is that a lot of trauma responses are not rational. And preserving the well-being of individuals who are trying to return to baseline is going to be number one. That's the reason that people access these services in the first place. Excellent point, Travis. Excellent point.
You're a woman. Great. Come on in.
Aren't we just ignoring the potential like re-traumatizing someone?
If somebody is in a rape crisis center, a group setting, and is being traumatized by another individual who is doing nothing wrong, I have news for you. That individual who is being traumatized is in the wrong place. Okay, I've studied.
It's not about that. It's like if somebody is being traumatized in a crisis stabilization service, they are going to be catered to. Yeah, that's like the whole point of crisis services. Yes.
Mental health.
And the raped woman is in the wrong place.
There are two raped women there. One of them is not causing any problems, and the other one is because she's saying that somebody else is traumatizing her. Okay, I'm not saying that she's in the wrong. I'm not saying that she's doing anything wrong necessarily, but she is being traumatized, and so that's clearly not the right place for her. She needs to go somewhere else, maybe an individual setting.
Ouch, fair enough. You're a feminist, would you say?
But that's just how that works. I've studied psychology and psychiatry. That's just how that works.
That's right.
So I want everybody to remember this because Alec Gunter studied psychiatry and psychology, okay? Alec Gunter later is going to conflate psychiatry and psychology, which is actually hilariously ironic. And again, anybody who's familiar with crisis stabilization services is like, no, preserving the well-being of the individual that is in crisis trying to return to baseline is going to be priority number one always, okay? Even if their fears are irrational, that's what those places are there for, is to hold space for that irrationality, okay? That's literally the point of it, so...
Fair enough. I have as well. But I mean, I get it. Would you call yourself a feminist?
But how else would you do it? How else would you do it? Like, let's say this. Let's say you have a woman, a cis woman, who has facial hair, goes into a rape crisis center, and one of the other women there says, "Well, she looks too much like a man, so I'm being traumatized by it, and I want her out." How do we solve this?
Well, if she's female,
you move them away from each other.
Well,
how do you determine whether she's female? How do you determine whether she's female?
And if you're in any kind of setting like this, you're going to have access to people's records. You won't have to do like the squat and cough to determine what somebody's like assigned sex at birth is. That's going to be documented. It's not like this big fucking state secret. Like it's going to be documented in people's intake paperwork, like their assigned sex. That is going to happen. But yes.
You have a look, presumably.
You have a look, yeah. So at a rape, you are advocating at a rape crisis center when somebody is traumatized by somebody else there because they criticize that person for looking too much like a man, pull their pants down, right? At a rape crisis center.
No, you just look at the records.
Probably not the only way. I don't know.
Okay, I would love to hear other ways.
You look at the records.
I don't have that answer. I mean, I don't work at a rape
Okay, you don't have that
center.
answer because you're bullshitting me.
I'm not
bullshitting you. Yes, you are. You know that this is not enforceable.
I mean, it is enforceable.
It's not the enforceability that we're talking about.
It is absolutely the enforceability that we're talking about. How else are we going to discuss this issue? You have a cis woman who goes in there.
As well.
The cis woman has some facial hair, and another woman there says, well, she looks too much like a man. She's traumatizing me. How do you solve this? You know how I solve it? I say, well, the person who's being traumatized is clearly not in the right setting. Okay, she needs help somewhere else. Because a cis woman with facial hair is, which we don't even know if she's cis, and it doesn't matter, but a woman with facial hair is causing her internal pain. And I recognize that pain. I'm not saying that woman's doing anything wrong or that she's evil or anything like that, but what I am saying is that she needs help elsewhere.
Get good, pussy.
Masculine-looking women get mistaken for trans.
A lot.
Because I never heard of it happening in one of our rape centers in this country.
Well, it can.
I would say even in the context of like rape shelters, we could say that this is exceptionally rare. Something that doesn't happen very often is where a masculine woman is perceived as, male or whatever the fuck and like causes a disruption. That's probably exceedingly rare. I would agree with that entirely. But even again, like in the context of that happening, like you still are going to prioritize like maintaining the milieu. Like that's still going to be priority number one. Like I don't know what to say.
Because you're basing these things off of physical characteristics.
It's a very niche point, though, right? I mean, we've solved the most.
No, this is the consequence of your view on this.
I mean,
is that we kick cis
women. The consequence of my view. I have no power in this area. Trust me.
You're saying that it's fine to kick trans women out of women's shelters, but if it's a cis woman who has exactly the same features, like if it's a trans woman and she's got a little facial hair, it's fine to kick her out. But suddenly it's a cis woman and it's fine to stay there, and you're wondering why we have all these discussions about trans rights.
I mean,
there's no difference between those two. There's no difference.
Solving the most niche situation of all time, so I'm not sure.
But this is the consequence of your worldview. You're saying that trans women, you say that,
then yeah.
But this is your argument for why trans women shouldn't go to women's rape shelters, and I'm telling you that's stupid.
Because they're male.
Based on what?
Based on the fact that they're male, they have male chromosomes, they were born with a penis.
Okay, so how do we? So you're at a rape center. You accuse somebody of...
You are raped. You have been raped.
You check that, and what is the procedure there?
What do you do? You've been raped. What do you do?
You don't know, so you're bullshitting.
You don't know.
Well, no, I tend to talk about things more in,
Take some time and think about this. Take some time and think about the implications of what you are advocating for. Okay.
Think about it.
Because
right now, what you're giving me is, well, I don't really know what we should do about it. I don't have the answer. It's.
If you can't do a British accent, don't even try. How embarrassing. Oof.
Slimy. It's spineless. You don't actually believe in anything.
Slimy.
Yes, you are.
I'm just trying to.
You're trying to wiggle your way out of the implication of your worldview. You're trying to wiggle your way out of it. Yes, you are.
That's fine. Listen,
weaselly little liar, dude.
I was interested in your Marcus video.
Good one. Little self-shill, I have a video going over Alec Gunter responding to Marcus Dibbs, aka the offensive Tiesler, on my channel, which is hilariously embarrassing. Alec Gunter is a laughingstock of the trans ally community and the trans community as a whole. We do not want Alec Gunter to speak for us. Please and thank you.
Talked over him a lot on trans issues. Do you think an ally should do that?
Marcus? Who?
Yeah,
the
Marcus
offensive
did.
T-slur?
Yeah.
Dude, fuck that guy. Most trans people disagree with him. Who cares?
Why don't you like him?
What volume issue? What are you talking about? Why are you talking shit, Ruben?
Because he's a transmedicalist.
Is he?
That's my understanding, yes. And he's
What's
also
wrong
a
with being a
fucking turf.
transmedicalist?
What's wrong with being... Because you're... being a transmedicalist implies that you're not actually, like, quote-unquote, a woman or man or whatever, unless you go through, like, the medical procedures to be that thing. And that's silly.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I agree with transmedicalism, but why does it make you a bad person to believe it?
Because you're literally taking people's...
Because you disagree with me.
On the basis of whether or not they've had certain procedures done on them.
Not just by believing something. That's just your opinion at that point.
What's my opinion?
No. If the transmedicalists, that's just their opinion. They're not doing anything to people's rights. They just have an
Okay,
opinion.
it's also a Nazi's opinion that Jews are destroying the world.
Oh,
But
God.
they're not doing anything wrong with that belief, right?
What is lions, tigers, bears, oh my, rape, civil rights issues, transmedicalism, oh my,
Well, they kill people. No one's killing
Nazis, oh my.
Not all Nazis kill people. Not all Nazis kill people.
Not the Nazis, bro.
Never
We're
killed
talking
a
about
single person.
transmedicalism, though.
Right, but you're saying that their belief doesn't actually have any consequences.
It doesn't make them a bad
Their
person.
opinion. Okay, opinions can absolutely make you a bad person.
Agree, they
What
What are you
can.
talking about?
They can, yeah, certainly.
What if my opinion is, I hate women, yeah, I'm only ever
that
really
makes you a
super
bad
nice to
person.
women? What if I'm only ever super nice to women the entire time?
Okay, you're...
This is kind of interesting to me. Like, if your opinion has, like, no impact on, like, how you treat other people, or it, like, doesn't carry out into the real world at all, does it really make you, like, a good or bad person? I don't know. I guess that's an interesting question, but I would say that, like, regardless of how you treat other people, like, coming to those conclusions require you to do, like, either think or feel or whatever bad things in order to get to that conclusion. Like if you hate all women, certainly there's something in there that's worth addressing that I would think would be bad. But if there's like no real tangible like change in your behavior towards women, I don't know if you could say that that's like you're a bad person for just believing. I don't know. Interesting question.
deconstructing a very silly scenario because a person who hates women is not going... That's going to have...
Maybe.
If you come up to me...
Someone might
do you
recognize
have-
they have a bigotry.
You want to talk about a silly edge case scenario. How often do you have somebody who says, yeah, I hate women, and then they go out of their way to be like super nice to women and respect their boundaries and behave around women the way that women want them to behave around them? How often do
I
you
know
actually
someone
see
sort
that
of like
happens?
that. I know someone sort of like that, believe it or not, but that's fine.
Okay, well, that's your personal anecdote. I'm telling you that that's not the norm. People who say that they hate women are usually going to go out of their way to bring some kind of harm or be annoying at the very least towards women.
But transmedicalists don't hate anyone. They just have a theory of being trans.
It doesn't matter if they think they hate anybody. The consequences of their beliefs is hatred. Like
There is no...
it results in the same thing, whether or not it's coming from a place of hate. That's my point.
Yeah, but what does transmedicalism result in? They just have an opinion.
It results in a lot of the same
That's
things
my
that
opinion!
transphobia results in, where it's like, oh, well, have you gone... It's basically just transphobia light, where it's like, well, have you actually gotten the procedure yet to make yourself a woman? You know, like, have you actually gone and gotten the vaginoplasty? Let's check and make sure before you're allowed in the bathroom. Like,
Not
it's
the
same thing,
vaginoplasty, bro.
except a
No.
little bit lighter, because you're saying that, yes, you can switch genders, but only after you do X, X, and Y.
I still don't see a problem with that. I think
What's up,
having
Bearzo?
different standards for what is trans really doesn't make you a bad person.
I just don't understand why a person can't be trans if they say they are.
Well, I mean, whether they're trans or not clearly depends on anyone's perspective, right?
Well, yes, we do live in a society, and, you know, outside...
We live in a society!
In terms of, like, gender, yeah. But
Yeah,
a
and every
person-
trans person pretty much gets a mixture of different perspectives, because some people are going to see me as a
but
man, some as a
have you
woman.
ever mistaken a woman for a man or vice versa? Have you ever done that? I'm not talking about trans or anything. I'm just saying, have you ever been in public and you call somebody a woman and they say, actually, I'm a man, or vice versa? Has that ever happened to you?
That's never happened to me, no.
Okay, it's happened to some people. It's happened to me.
I think that people should dedicate a little bit more time to audio balancing when they have conversations. I'm guilty of this as well. Okay, may he who is without sin cast the first stone. I completely agree. Okay, but I think that like people should be a little bit more intentional before they start having conversations with audio balancing. Just my opinion. Okay, and I can be better moving forward in the future as well, because I'm sure that I'm guilty of this too. And so I apologize for my sins and misdeeds. But like, let's normalize doing audio balancing before we actually start yapping. Okay, like let's take a second and, you know, make sure that everybody's equal volume. You know, somebody's eardrums aren't getting blown out, the other person's like a whisper. Let's take our time, guys. Let's produce some quality content. Okay.
People, because, you know, as we age, we often kind of collapse into amorphous blobs. So, yeah, like genderless blobs, I should say. I mistook this elder woman for a man. I said, "Hello, sir. How are you doing?" She said, "It's ma'am." Right? You know what I didn't do?
It's
I
ma'am.
didn't say, "Well, no, actually, here's why you're a man. You see, I saw the stubble on your upper lip, and
Yeah, see, Alec is really loud. I don't like this. I want to go back. I don't like this. I'm going to turn you off. Go a little bit lower. Let's try that.
the jawline that you are currently showing me is indicative of male." That's silly. That's stupid. It is much more simple to just be like, "Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. How
No
are you
one has
doing,
to do
ma'am?"
that. people don't always say what they think. Like, they might just
But
accept it.
that's the end result.
Okay.
That's the end result, though, of this idea that like we need to make sure that gender matches sex.
What, that people get misgendered?
That people get clocked and then purposefully misgendered over and over. It's
That
silly.
happens anyway. So why demonize the trans person that has different standards to other trans people? That happens anyway.
Because they're reinforcing this worldview.
How so?
Because they're saying, well, you're not really a woman until you have the vaginoplasty, or you're not really a woman until you get on hormones. And it's like, well, that's silly because there are a lot of cis women out there as well who have low estrogen and high testosterone. Should we misgender them until they get on estrogen?
Totally. I agree. Yes.
Well,
Misgender everyone.
The thing
You don't
with
know.
that
You
is-
don't know anything. What do you know?
What do I know?
We're
Well,
getting-
Yeah, what do you know? Because for so far, what I've heard
Alec Gunter, soy rage. Dumb woman talk. Get him.
is, I don't actually understand any of the implications of anything that I'm saying, but I still stand by them with an iron fist. That's what I'm hearing.
The implications you're talking about are speculation.
That's not
Saying this is what could
speculation.
happen.
That's the end result.
Right.
That's just what happens.
The trans women have menstrual cycles.
It doesn't matter. Why does that
Nothing
matter?
matters.
Do you ever go out and be
Nothing
like, well, I need
matters.
to know about your menstrual cycle before I gender you?
All the time. I'm joking. I don't. No, never done that.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. Because that'd be weird,
Trans
right?
women get menstrual cycles. Though,
That'd be a
I don't
freak
know.
thing to do. That's something that a freak would do,
No,
right?
because you said before
Yeah,
that
you little
trans
freak.
women get menstrual cycles, even though menstruation is the uterus lining coming out.
Trans women, to my understanding, estrogen causes it can cause some symptoms that are similar to a menstrual cycle. I'm not saying that a trans woman can menstruate. Okay?
Isn't that just like fluctuating hormones, though? I mean, that always happens.
Yeah, and
Happens
that's
with
part of
everyone.
that is often part of menstruation is fluctuating hormones.
But don't men also have fluctuating hormones?
Yeah, but not to the same degree.
Yeah,
At
man.
least that's my
Get good.
understanding. I haven't looked into this.
Yeah,
a
fuck
lot,
you,
but,
man.
Like
Yes.
the trans woman is saying, I'm getting hormonal cramps once a month, and it feels similar to the way that a cis woman would have cramps when they're having a menstrual cycle. They can. I feel like it's reasonable to say, well, that's kind of like my menstrual cycle. I get it once a month, and it hurts in my abdomen, and I get mood swings just like a cis woman would do.
I get saying it's like it, but you literally don't menstruate, so how can you call it like a menstrual cycle?
Why do you care? You get the
I just think
point.
it's interesting. Why?
What do you care? This is like a regular topic of conversation about trans shit. Like, if you are here to have a debate about esoteric trans shit that 99% of people like don't even know the first thing about, don't even care about, don't even give a shit. Okay, it's like on the back burner of their daily woes and concerns and thoughts, feelings, attitudes, behaviors, what have you. Like, who cares? You do. You're the one that made the statement. She's asking you about the statement that you made, and you guys are here to literally debate about like esoteric trans shit. What do you mean? Who cares? Oh, good one. Wow, very nice.
Why do
But you get their point. You get their point,
I'm
right?
trans. I want.
When a trans woman tells you, "I'm having menstrual cramps,"
No,
do you
you're not.
understand?
That's what I say.
Huh?
They're not. That's just not happening.
Are you in their head? Are you in their body?
Well, I care about the truth, and
Are you in their head? Are you in their body? Great rebuttal. Great rebuttal. Our cis king.
trans women can't menstruate because they don't have vaginas, ovaries.
They can
you know,
have
all that.
fluctating hormones, just like what happens in somebody who does have a uterus.
So
And
I
they get
guess
cramps
it's,
and mood swings.
yeah, that's not menstruation.
It's not menstruation technically, but like you're nitpicking here. It's just like, why do you care?
Because it's a
It's just
topic
like-
of conversation.
Why do I care?
You're here to
It's just
debate trans
hilarious.
shit.
That's the
Why do I have
point.
to justify why I care about it? I'm literally trans.
Because it seems like you're
of course
just
I
doing
care.
this out of bad faith to be a piece of shit. Like that's
He was gonna call her a bitch. He was gonna do tactical misogyny. The Vosh mask slipped. He was gonna do tactical misogyny based.
good.
Very friendly. Listen, I care about the truth. I think there's been a lot of lies going
Why do you care
around.
about
I think
the
it's
truth?
biting us in the ass.
Why do you care about the truth? Great question.
Because
care about
people
the
lie
truth
about
so
this shit constantly, and
Why
we're getting
about what?
bited in the ass now.
What's the lie?
We lie about loads of stuff. We're saying that trans women are literally born as women in the bodies of men. That's completely not possible.
That's an oversimplification. But for people who don't understand trans issues, it's usually the best way to explain it.
We constantly pretend the detrans rate is lower than it is. We have a very interesting way of using studies, I'll say.
We don't. Wait, where are you getting this idea that we underestimate the trans rate? Where's that coming from?
So detrans rates in studies typically won't include people that dropped out during the study. They count people
How
who
can
went all
it?
the way through to the end.
If you drop out during the study, which
This is like a really dog shit argument, by the way. Like people will drop out of studies, but you literally can't count them. Like you just can't, because you can't make definitive claims about whether they continue detransition, if they retransitioned, if they you can't like make that claim. So you can say like, oh wow, I wish that we had better data for detransitioners, or I personally believe the rate might be higher than what's reported because of da da da. But you can't expect researchers to count people who drop from their study by making an assumption about their trajectory after they drop out of the study. That's actually fucking stupid.
is your right to do. How can they include people who drop out?
Well, the thing is, most of the ones that drop out, they're going to just desist, right? So they should be counted as
Wait. How do you have?
detransitioned,
Wait.
but they aren't.
How do you have any implication of what that person does when they drop out?
Yeah,
Well,
that's
because they drop out
stupid
of the
argument.
study.
Stupid
No, they dropped
You
argument.
can
out of
look
the
up,
study.
you can
Maybe
look
they
up,
switched times.
what do you think? Like, is it really realistic that every single person that drops out goes to a different clinic.
A study sometimes involves more,
Yeah, sometimes they do.
more labor than not doing the study and just going to the doctor. Sometimes people just drop out. Like, people drop out of studies all the time, but it's only scrutinized in trans studies because of transphobia.
Yeah, but it's not just dropping out of the study, it's dropping out of the transition altogether, and then they don't get counted as
How can you
detransition.
possibly measure that?
You can't.
Well,
just
it
hearsay.
usually says the desistance rate
Stupid
of the study.
argument.
Yeah, it says the desistance rate for those who did not drop out. That's all they can do. That's the best
So
we
the
have.
implication
Stupid
is that
fucking
a lot of
argument.
them ended their transition.
That's
No,
not the
there's
implication.
no implication of that. What are you talking about?
Well, if someone stops going to a clinic, presumably
If I'm doing a study about the effectiveness of AA, and I have 10 people that are participating in my study, and let's say 2 of the 10 people halfway through the study just stop coming to AA. Let's just say they stop coming. I, as a researcher, cannot say definitively that these people stopped coming to AA because they like relapsed or decided to go back to drinking alcohol. You cannot make that claim. The only thing that you can do is document these people like declined to participate in the study and are no longer being included in the final data count. You cannot ascribe like the outcome to them dropping out of the study because maybe they found a different AA group that they like better. That's possible. Maybe they did relapse and they're consuming alcohol again. Okay, possible. Maybe they just didn't fuck with AA and they found a better program that they like better. Maybe they realized that they needed a lot more help than AA and so they got committed to a more intensive inpatient service or something like that. And now they've been sober with higher success rates than they would at AA. Like, it is unethical for you to ascribe and basically say like, oh yeah, the reason that they dropped out is because of X, Y, and Z without definitive knowledge. Like, you literally cannot do that. You could say, again, like, in my opinion, I think that, the people that drop out of the study, they're probably, detransitioning all the way. I don't have any evidence for that, but like, that's what I think. Obviously they can't count that in the study, but that's what I think. That's why I think the rates are, wrong or inflated or whatever. That's fine. Saying that researchers should include people that are no longer participating in the study by assuming their trajectory after leaving the study is fucking insane. This is like the worst thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, maybe they
stop the
moved.
treatment.
Have you ever moved in your life?
Never. I've been sat here since 1990.
Okay, apparently you have, because sometimes people move and switch clinics. Sometimes people drop out of studies for other reasons.
You guys want me to have a green text chat? That sounds like kind of gay, don't you think?
See a different doctor. Sometimes, sometimes you still identify as trans, but like you don't want certain hormones or you don't want certain treatments. Like, there's all kinds of things that can happen. That doesn't mean that everybody who drops out, you have to assume that they're desisting.
You don't have to
That's
assume everyone.
that's anti-scientific.
You don't have to assume everyone. Even if it's just a few,
No.
that means the detrans rate they reported is lower.
You can't assume anything about
You literally, like, oh my god, Mary, you dumb bitch. I'll do the misogyny. Alec Gunter is too afraid. I will do the tactile misogyny, you dumb bitch. Mary, no, you cannot ascribe that. You cannot assume. You cannot assume the outcome of people that are no longer participating in the study. You cannot do that. No.
about them. They're null. They're null factors now. They're out of the study.
I don't know. To me, there's an implication there.
Incredibly rare, Alec Gunter W. Incredibly rare, you guys. Mark your calendars.
Okay, well, you're wrong.
They
You're
existed in the clinic.
you're scientifically and logically wrong.
They haven't proven that I'm scientifically wrong.
Yes.
You are scientifically wrong.
It is scientifically wrong to count people that drop out of a study as having a certain outcome when you don't know the actual outcome. You're assuming. Yes, that's unscientific. She's making me defend Alec Gunter. Mary, fuck you. Mary, if you're out there somewhere, fuck you for making me defend Alec Gunter. I hate you for that.
Wrong. You can't measure that scientifically. You can't. Once you drop out of the study, you can't measure that person anymore. They dropped out.
Yeah, but what if they start putting their testimonies on the internet like some detransitioners do? What if there was a question on the...
So what? What if somebody attends my AA study, they drop out for reasons unbeknownst to me, and then they go on Twitter and they say, I love getting fucked up every single day of the week. I drink 400 cans of beer in a week. I'm going to die very young. The doctors say I have a week left to live. I can't wait to get off of Twitter and drink more beer. Does that mean I can retroactively go back in my study based off of a fucking tweet and say like, oh yeah, see, this person dropped out of AA. They're still like, come on, bro. Mary!
That's not part of the study.
And most people are coming back saying, nah, I just ghosted my clinic. I just didn't want to do it anymore.
Okay, here's what you do. You do another study on people who were part of those studies. And you say, okay, these are the people who are part of this study. Here's what happened to them. That's very difficult to do, though, so that's why you don't see those. Because if they dropped out of the study once, they're probably not going to sign up for another one.
True.
Well, they didn't sign up for a study. Half the time the studies are just using the data from the clinics. There's every chance I've been in a study because I went through my whole process, you know?
Even if they're just using the data from the clinic, they can't make assumptions. I'm done stunt locking on this point. You guys get the gist.
That somebody stops being trans just because they stop going to a clinic. Maybe they're happy with how they look and they quit going for that reason.
It's not all about looks, you know?
You get my point.
Yes.
Well, I don't know. Surely you'd assume that it's a bit of everything, and therefore the detrans rate is still low then.
All you're saying is that you don't trust the results of these studies.
Well, no, I'm giving a reason as to why the number that's reported is low. And then people make videos,
don't trust
oh,
them,
the
even though-
detrans rate is like 2%.
These studies, yeah, what's the detrans rate you said, 2%?
Well, that's what people cite, but it's I'm
What do you think it
100%
is?
sure it's higher than that.
What do you think it is
What do I
in
think it
your
is?
expert opinion? Yeah.
In my expert opinion, My expert alter isn't fronting right now, but my less expert opinion is, I don't know, 15, 20% somewhere.
Okay, 15, 20%.
That's
so
pretty
you're
high.
saying that we should then make 80 to 85% of trans people suffer because those 10 to 15% desisted. Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. I just want people to stop lying. I want people to be honest
What are you
about
lying?
trans
Who's lying?
issues. Everyone that says that there's a 2% detransition rate is a lie. They don't know that. They can't know that.
That's the data.
It's not a lie. It's just by going off of the information that's provided. Like, if you time travel back in time to when doctors recommended smoking for coughs, like they were like, oh, you have a cough? Smoke a cigarette about it. Were they lying, or were they going off of the facts that they knew to be true at the time? At the time, they genuinely thought that cigarette smoking was actually good for a cough. That wasn't a lie. That was them working with the information that they had at the time. Like, a lie requires intent, and a lie requires, well, it just mostly requires intent. I was going to say it requires malice, but it doesn't necessarily require malice. But it requires intent. If you unwillingly, given information that is presented to you right now, like if you ask a caveman, hey, is the sun a god? And the caveman goes, yes, that's God up there. The sun, that's God right there. Is he lying? No, he's going off of the information that he has, and he's like regurgitating or reiterating what he knows to be true. That's not a lie. That's not a lie. A lie requires intent. You have to know something is true and then say the other thing. That's what a lie is. That requires intent. I'm getting brain cancer. Mary, you started off so strong. Mary, why are you doing this to me, Mary? We were rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. I need that clip. Hang on. YouTube.com. Tyra Banks, we were all rooting for you.
Like this. When my mother yells at this, it's because she loves me. I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. How dare you? I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. How dare you?
Me at Mary right now. Me at Mary. Somebody tag Mary right now. Me at Mary. Fuck.
Held up by like every medical institution in the United States.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not a good thing.
I mean, that's not a good thing. You
Well,
don't
they're
trust medical
all-
institutions?
Not
Wait,
these
hang
ones. I
on,
don't trust
hang on.
W.
Oh, you don't trust
You've
these
read
ones?
the W
Where do you...
part.
I need to go back. Hang on. Sorry.
Everyone that says that there's a 2% detransition rate is a lie. They don't know that. They can't know
That's the data that's held up by like every medical institution in the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you shouldn't appeal to authority here. You should just say, like, this is the data that exists right now. And until we can have better data or more accurate data or, you know, different data or whatever the fuck, this is what we have to go off of because this is what's presented. Like, this is what we have, okay? This is what we have. This is what we know. We don't know that it's higher. We don't know that it's lower. All we know right now is with what exists, this is where it is. Like, it's not like, oh, well, Harvard said it. It's like, no, wrong answer. The answer is this is the information that we have currently. If anything, let's advocate for more studies. I love studies. I love studies. Do more. Do more studies. Do more research. Learn more things. Never stop growing. Never stop dreaming. Never stop achieving. Okay? Always seek knowledge. Okay? That's great. That's fantastic. That's phenomenal. Great. However, right now, this is the data that we have, and so that's what we're going to look at. You can have your disagreements or your opinions or whatever, but you can't say like, oh, well, it's a lie. It's like, no, this is what we know to be true right now.
That's not a good thing.
I mean, that's not a good thing. You
Well,
don't
they're
trust medical
all-
institutions?
Not these ones. I don't trust W.
Oh, you don't trust
You've
these
read
ones.
the W
Where do you go when you have cancer?
Where do I go when I have cancer?
To the
Do
grave.
you trust the
I go to a
Endocrine
hospital,
Society?
not a...
Who's
I don't go to an org.
Go to the
whose
morgue.
data do you trust for cancer treatments?
Nice. I missed that
I don't know.
earlier.
I haven't looked into it.
How about the Endocrine Society? Would you trust them?
Well, I can look at them, but, you know, if I decide that I don't think their
Well, I have
data is
news
very
for you.
reliable,
All the cancer treatments come from the Endocrine Society, basically all of
you're
them.
not talking about cancer.
Okay, but you're talking about trusting medical institutions, and the Endocrine Society is one of the medical institutions that upholds the data that we have on trans care. So why
I've
do you
done
trust
zero.
them? So why would my question is why would you trust the Endocrine Society for cancer, but you wouldn't trust them for trans issues?
I'm
It
not
seems very
saying I
selective to
would.
me.
I'm not saying
You're,
I would.
okay, so you would not personally trust the Endocrine Society if you have cancer. You're gonna go
I
get
don't
some
know.
holistic
I
care.
don't have cancer. I've never had cancer.
Oh, Mary's here. Mary, fuck you. You're making me defend Alec Gunter. Come on now. Come on, Mary. Come on. I expected better from you. Expected better from you. I'm very disappointed. Mother is very angry kitten. Just so you know.
Okay, well, what if
I
you
think
get it?
it's
You
good
could
to talk
wake up.
about it.
You could wake up tomorrow with a lump on your neck. You know that, right? So where would you
Yeah.
go?
To the grave.
Hospital. Okay. They tell you have
NHS.
cancer. They tell you have cancer. Here's the prescribed treatment. This is coming from the Endocrine Society. What do you say?
Cool.
I don't know. I know nothing about cancer.
What do you mean you don't know?
I'm kinda
What you say is,
putting
yeah,
my life
I'll
in their
take the
hands.
fucking treatment because otherwise I'll die. That's what you say, right?
Maybe.
Presumably, but this is
Presumably.
nothing to do with trans.
Maybe. I mean, some people don't want gamma knife radiation. That sounds like not very fun. I don't know. Depends. Depends. Fair enough.
Yes, it does, because the same medical institution that is researching and putting out data for cancer are the ones researching and putting out data for trans care. But you trust them on one thing and not another. Why?
Yeah. I listen. The Endocrine Society, I don't know very much about.
Okay.
I know next to nothing about cancer and never had it.
They're a very well regarded institution when it comes to endocrine issues.
Cool.
Okay.
What about WPATH?
What about
Do you trust
WPATH?
them? They run practically any country in the world. They probably run that stuff if it's not the UK and Sweden and stuff.
I don't know that much about WPATH, but I know that
Well,
every
you should
single
look
medical
into them.
institution.
Your strongest trans ally doesn't know a lot about WPATH. We're never getting rights, guys.
It's interesting.
Okay, well, what are they saying?
Well, they had people. First off, you'll instantly learn if you look at the WPATH files that they do operate on children, which is nice. But there was
Operate
things
on
like
children how? What do you mean?
vaginoplasties.
Okay, did that child, like, what were they doing? Like, mutilating their penis or something? Like, was there a reason for it? Have we
Well,
looked
they
into
had
why
a
these were performed?
vaginoplasty because
Or did they just do it for
they-
funsies? Were they like, oh, the doctors just wanted to do it for funsies, right?
They did it for the same reason that I would have got a vaginoplasty for their
Oh,
children.
so for mental health reasons, right?
Kind of.
Yeah, so that's fine.
So you're fine with children.
And then in the debate that he had with that guy on Twitter, do you guys remember that? We watched that, last week? He did that debate with that guy on Twitter, and the guy on Twitter was like, they're giving kids sex changes, and he was like, that literally never fucking happens. And now he's like, oh, kids are getting sex changes based. Oh, interesting. Lemon, interesting.
Getting cross-sex.
Let's walk through this. No, I would prefer they wait, but let's walk through this. Let's say that you have a child who is horrifically dysphoric about their genitalia. What do you do?
You have them wait until they're 18. We should not be giving bottom surgery to children. I think that's a pretty easy peasy lemon squeezy. We don't operate on kids' genitals until they're adults and give them sex changes. Crazy idea. Crazy woke idea, guys.
I have no idea. I don't have kids.
You don't! Yeah, you don't, do you? You guys haven't studied any of this or thought through it.
I wouldn't transition them. How do you know I haven't studied?
Ironic coming from Alec Gunter, who doesn't know anything about WPATH, doesn't know anything about male pattern violence, doesn't know anything about autogynephilia, doesn't know anything about any of this. You don't know anything about this! Ironic. Pot meets kettle.
If anything, that's a bit rude.
You haven't. You could either you haven't studied it or you haven't. Thought through it. Because I'll tell you what you do. I'll tell you what you do.
I'll tell you what you
take that
do.
kid to the doctor. You say, doctor, my child is so dysphoric about their penis that they're mutilating it. Okay? They're literally sitting there trying to get it off themselves. This is.
At that case, it's like, all right, dude, sorry, but we're gonna hit you with the 5150. You're out of here, bud. Sorry. Like, what the fuck? What are you talking about?
This happened before. Okay? Not very often, not all the time. It's not the standard, but it does happen. So what do? Sometimes you give them a vaginoplasty.
Probably not. We probably shouldn't.
You can probably count on two hands the number of vaginoplasties that have been performed on minors in the last 50 years. Okay?
Oh, no, it's more
but sometimes
than-
it
it's more
happens,
than
and we
two
should leave that.
Is one not too many, guys? Come on now.
We should leave that up to the doctors, not up to
What if they
bureaucrats.
regret it?
Okay? Well, the alternative at the time was that they were going to cut off their own penis.
Okay, then you
And it's
fake
very
correct
specific.
them.
I don't even know if any of the people
Yes, it is very
operate
specific,
on
isn't it?
that.
It's a fringe case.
Yeah. I
Yes.
don't even know if that represents any of the cases I read about.
So you're talking about the exception, not the rule, right?
No, I'm saying that they operate on kids.
How many? And for what
Shoot,
purpose?
well, for the same like for trans purposes.
How many 10, 12-year-olds are they giving vaginoplasties?
I think Marcy Bowers said that she'd operated on like 10 to 20.
DZ, for that, they prescribe 4-point restraints. Very true, and the little mittens. So you can't scratch.
Something like that. I
10 to
can't
20.
remember. There was
And
someone
what
else.
period of time?
I have no idea.
Okay.
This was overall, probably through a career, something like that.
My point is, I'd rather leave that up to a doctor than a bureaucrat. A team of doctors, preferably.
I don't know. I think that there are some things that we just like shouldn't let doctors do. Like, I think that it should be illegal for your doctor to inject uranium into your brain to see what happens. I think that we could probably say that we shouldn't do that. I wouldn't leave that up to a doctor and a patient. What are some other things, guys? I don't think that doctors should willingly give you, like, chlamydia. I don't think that I think that we should probably have a law that says doctors can't give patients chlamydia for fun. I think that that's probably one of them. I'm sure I could think of more if I really sat down and I thought about it. But yeah, I think that there is some legislation that's actually probably pretty good in regard to what doctors can and can't do. Peace and blessings.
Preferably. And healthcare institutions. People who know this shit.
But
Who
then, what if
can
they,
make judgment calls like this.
but then what if they regret it and want kids and now they can't have them ever?
As I'm saying, the alternative sometimes is worse, okay? If the alternative is suicide, then yeah, sometimes the vaginoplasty is fine.
What if they end up being suicidal because they regret it?
That's a great what if, but we
good
can't
question.
know that. We can't look into the future and see that. All we know right now is that we have a kid who's suicidal.
Well, yeah, but like if somebody is suicidal right now because they're 15 years old and they can't drink alcohol, we aren't just like, well, fuck, they're gonna kill themselves. Give them a shot. Like we do have to consider like outcomes here. We do have to do like a little bit of cost benefit analysis. We do have to do a little risk versus reward here. It's not just like spin the wheel. This will make you feel better. Let's do it. Like we do have to put in a little bit of work when we're talking about kids specifically, because there are long-term consequences to these kinds of things that we do have to actually sit down and evaluate and say like, is this a good thing to do? Is this something they can consent to? What are the long-term ramifications of this? What kind of other interventions can we try? Like there's a lot that goes into this. Okay, it isn't just like, oh my god, Timmy said he's gonna kill himself, give him top surgery right now. Like that's not where, no, that's no.
Suicidal, trying to mutilate their own dick. All right, and so the best course of action.
Great example, Mr. Mollusk. Oh my god, my king. We're mind melting right now. We're mind melting. Fucking brain blast. This is a really good example as well as with ADHD medication. That is another really good example. People have their kids, right? You have little Timmy. Little Timmy's going to school. Little Timmy is being a domestic terrorist in Mrs. Jones' classroom, okay? Timmy is a domestic terrorist. He will not sit still. He's bouncing off the walls. He's freaking out. He's yelling. He's kicking. He's screaming. Rage, okay? Timmy goes to the doctor. They're like, Timmy has ADHD. I have a really good idea. Let's put him on like fucking 50 milligrams of instant release Adderall. No! There are other things that we can do to do behavioral concerns, like address the behavior, try to work around like making the classroom like a little bit more functional for Timmy. Maybe Timmy needs to get an IEP so he can take time away from his desk so he can walk around without disrupting the classroom. Maybe Timmy needs like a one-on-one. Maybe Timmy needs more attention in class. The first thing that we do is not fucking just throw Adderall at Timmy and fry his fucking brain. We don't do that. Timmy is never going to be able to envision the apple. You know the test? The test? Close your eyes, you guys. Envision an apple. Is it 3D? Is it 2D? Can you pick it up? Can you twirl it around? You know, can you move it around? Can you envision yourself picking up the apple? Can you envision yourself eating the apple? Congratulations. Timmy lost that ability forever because you melted his fucking brain with stimulants. Like,
Action is just to give them the vaginoplasty. And that doesn't happen very often, mind you. This is like a very fringe case scenario you're presenting me. But I'd rather leave that up to doctors. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you rather leave that up to doctors?
I don't think...
Or do you know
I don't
that?
think I'd call it fringe. Hang on. I don't think I'd call it fringe to say that someone who's had a part of them taken off and now regrets it because they can't have kids or something.
anyone who cannot do the apple test, your opinion is completely invalid. You're low IQ and a loser. Okay. If you cannot envision the apple, I don't care what you have to say. Okay. I love you guys endlessly. If you can't envision the apple, you are not worthy of moral consideration in my eyes in a video game. Okay.
Something.
It's fringe because it barely happens.
Suicidal.
It's first of all, I don't know if I know a single case of somebody who's had a vaginoplasty at like 12 years old and now regrets it. In fact,
I'm sure that there are cases. Obviously, I don't want to play semantic bibble babble, but certainly there are probably people that have gotten, vaginoplasty at a young age and regret it. I mean,
I barely know any cases of that happening at all.
Maybe you should have studied it more.
Maybe I should have studied it more. Give me a case then.
Give you a case. I don't have one to hand.
Oh, then maybe you should have studied it more. Maybe you should have had that on hand.
Yeah, I guess we can go back and forth like this.
Yeah, because you're wrong.
Because you're wrong.
What's up with that?
Good one.
Welcome.
Me! That's me! Wait! Hang on. Go back. Wait! I know this guy. Hang on. 1 second. Everybody hang on. It's me!
Yeah, because you're wrong.
How come you went to debate Malcolm? What's up with that?
Malcolm. You mean the offensive T-slur?
No, that's Marcus.
Oh, all trans guys are the same. Every trans guy is Marcus Dibbs or Buck Angel. Trans androphobia from fucking our cis king Alec Gunter. Ugh. Will I ever catch a break?
Malcolm, FT Mongoose or something?
That's me.
Like a nice guy.
I never said that I wouldn't debate him.
Okay, I might be off track with that. That's just what I heard.
Why would I don't know where you got that. I know who that is. We used to be on good terms, and then he dicked out on me because of something that happened with some other creator.
I dicked out on him. Shall we read? Oh wow. It's a good thing I keep all my DMs forever. Let's do a little light reading. April 16th, 2024. Malcolm. Okay, bro. I've been up on this card posting shit. What is going on? LOL. Alec. It was a while back and I've been trying to disconnect myself from it. I shouldn't have gotten involved, but the TLDR is that a video talking about his dog whistle showed up in my feed. I went over it for content and he replied. We went back and forth and the people started coming forward about his alleged involvement with sexual harassment. I got some DMs that had compelling information and I also reached out to an IRL org that he's associated with to ask them about it. To ask them about him. I got a reply from someone stating that he was booted from the org for attempting to sexually harass people, specifically trans people. IDK to what extent these connections I made between his alleged online accounts are correct. All I know is that multiple unrelated sources came forward. I even got more DMs after the video alleging that he was making AI porn of people. It would be much more easier to prove all of this if I were allowed to give names, but everyone wanted to remain completely anonymous. I realize that's inconvenient. Malcolm. Bro, why did you try and nuke him over this? It's just random info. Alec. It's not random info. As I said, I reached out to the org he's associated with, and I still have the email and the DMs I share with the person that are included in the video. I still firmly believe the allegations. Me. Why would you go IRL over bullshit tit for tat on YouTube, though? Alec. Sexual abuse allegations or tit for tat? Question mark. Malcolm. That you say you can't substantiate in any meaningful way. Like, what are the optical implications of that? Alec. I thought I had enough info. I thought that I had enough info and had drawn enough good connections to present my case. I wish that I had done a cleaner job of it, but I still feel there's enough to call him out over. I offered to bring him on stream multiple times so that I could ask him about it personally. He refused. Me. Man, that's fucked up. You know that, right? Alec, what is? Me. Nuking him because he wouldn't come on stream to talk about it and posturing, quote, he's probably a sex cult groomer, end quote, without providing any evidence other than private DMs that you won't share. And or can't substantiate in any meaningful way, like nuking a non-binary person as a sex cult groomer over this is like, what, lol? Alec. They asked not to have their names revealed. The person from the org specifically requested that I not even reveal the name of the org in case he were to come after them. If you'd like, I can try to connect you with them to see if they'd be willing to share with you info personally. As I said, I reached out to them via the official website. I pursued this in the best faith as I could. As I said, I wish I had done things differently, but I still feel that the evidence lines up. Me. I'm not touching that nuclear shit, LMAO. I don't know why you would try and go IRL with this kind of stuff over a disagreement on his video. Alec. I wanted to let it go. Again, it was over the sex pest allegations. I don't feel I'm being treated particularly in good faith by you right now. Me. Being a sex pest doesn't make somebody a groomer or a sex cult leader. And just because I'm being critical of your actions does not mean that I'm not acting in good faith. Alec. I was putting forward what I thought was his intentions with the YouTube channel and building an audience. It was my opinion based on what I'd seen and what I'd heard. And it's not it's not as though being a sex pest is that far removed from grooming. Think about that one. And you assume that I pursued this over a personal grudge, which is not treating me in good faith. Sit with that one for a second too. I've read the messages you sent threatening to go nuclear and IRL if he didn't email you back. It seemed like you went digging because he didn't want to talk to you or go on your stream. And yes, Alec, I know, being a sex pest is far different than being a groomer. Alec, I don't feel like discussing this further with you. Me, no problem. If you change your mind, I'm happy to chat. If you so desire, have a good night. Yeah, I totally dicked out there. I totally fucking dicked out there, dude. I dicked out so fucking hard. No, I think it's actually fucking ridiculous that Card Posting made this video. Alec Gunter was getting private DMs from anonymous posters on 4chan saying that this guy was a fucking sex pest groomer sex cult leader, and he was like, oh shit, this must be true, and then contacted places that he worked in real life. That's fucking insane. That is insane. That's fucking crazy. That's fucking crazy. That's nutso. That's nutso. What the fuck are you talking? You got anonymous messages that you couldn't source in any meaningful capacity to levy allegations that this guy is a fucking sex pest groomer rapist, and that he is. And then he also made allegations that he's like a pedophile because he wrote a short story about a girl who was hitchhiking. And he was like, this is like kind of weird, is it not? Kind of pedo, is it not? Because he wrote a short story about a girl who was hitchhiking. That's fucking insane. You're right, but I dicked out by being incredibly polite and passive in DMs. Very true based. Very based and true. Okay. This was talking about card posting. I don't know if you remember that, Travis. It is about card posting. Sorry, it's about card posting. Card posting. No, it is way over the line. Because some random fucking nobody. And again, like this, I'm just going to tell you guys a little nugget of truth, okay? And anybody who ever spends time online is very privy to this, okay? People are always stirring shit. They're always stirring shit. They're always like, oh, this person said this about you. This person said that about you. This person's doing this. This person's doing that. If you don't have, like, proof that you can share publicly, don't do that. That's fucking ridiculous. Like, think about it this way. Say that, I'm going to pick on a random person in chat. DZ was the last person to chat, okay? Let's say that somebody messages me and they say, that guy, DZ, who's in your chat, that guy is, a racist. He's super fucking racist. He's gotten fired from 10 jobs for being racist. All he does is be a racist. That's what he is. He shouldn't be in your chat. And me, stupid me, goes, oh my god, that's horrible, click ban, and then I'm gonna make a fucking 3-hour video expose on how DZ is fucking racist. No, I would be like, oh, okay, he's being racist. Okay, do you have screenshots? No. Do you have any information about him getting fired from his job? Like, do you have, like a statement that was put out by his job? Do you have anything like that? No. Okay. Do you have anybody who, like, he's been racist towards that I can talk to you to be like, yo, like, or do you have screenshots of somebody saying, like, here's evidence of DZ being racist to me? No. Okay. Sorry that you feel that way. That's not something that I'm going to cover because obviously, like, there's no evidence here. I can't come out and say full-throatedly DZ is a racist when you've given me nothing. That makes me look insane, and you look insane as well. If you can't substantiate it, fuck off. Because that's what people are doing. And people were really excited that Alec Gunter and card posting were fighting. So obviously, little people, working in the background, trying to stir the pot, which, don't get me wrong, pot stirring has its place, okay? We're stirring the pot. They gave Alec Gunter bait, and Alec Gunter took it, and then tried to walk it back after he fucking nuked this guy for no fucking reason, because he has all this evidence that he can't post publicly. If this guy is a sex pest, and he's a rapist, and a groomer, and a molester, and he's a danger to people, especially trans people, Alec Gunter, you should know better, you should make all that public. Because if this guy is dangerous, if this guy is out there molesting everybody, everybody should know about it. We should have the proof. You shouldn't be sitting on it and saving it for a rainy day. You should post it. Protect the integrity of the community, King. What about the safety of trans people, the safety and well-being of trans people? What about the organization? There's people right now at that organization that may have been molested. Do we not need to hear about that? Like, come on, dude. It's fucking... He was playing dirty. He got fucking blown out by some guy that he thought was going to roll over and let him talk shit. He got blown the fuck out by my God King card posting. And then he decided that he was going to go on a crusade to try and nuke his shit because he was fucking salty that card posting called him a slackjaw soy new male bug man. That's what happened, okay? And he walked right into the trap of people stirring the pot and tried to start drama. He walked right fucking into it, looked like an idiot, claimed that he was having a bipolar manic episode, and took a break off of streaming because he embarrassed himself so badly. That's actually what happened. That's the real recounting of events. But yes, I dicked out really hard because I pressed Alec Gunter on him being like a fucking idiot about the entire situation and committing optical suicide. Yes, very true, very true. Based and true. F's in chat for Malcolm soying the fuck out. Yes, I love being soy. Also, writing and art are often not literal depictions of things. Well, and the thing, Travis, is that the short story wasn't even weird. It wasn't even weird. It was a story about a girl who got, like, picked up by a hitchhiker. She was, like, 12, and he, like, took her to CPS or something like that. I don't even remember, like, the whole thing, but it was, like, it was so fucking stupid. Like, it wasn't... There wasn't any, like, sexy shit, like, nothing. It was literally just a short story about a girl getting picked up by a hitchhiker. That was, or a girl who was hitchhiking and got picked up, and the guy was like, we should take you to CPS because you're, like, a kid or something like that. That was, like, the whole fucking thing. That was it. It wasn't even sussy. It was just, like, a short story. Are the Harry Potter books pedophilia because they're about children? Like, come on, dude. What is this moral frogging? What are we doing right now?
Oh, what did he do? Was he mean to you?
Yeah, he was very mean, and I had my feelings hurt, yes.
Very true.
You do
Based.
You're quite mean to
Accurate
other people,
depiction.
though, so is that,
I'm
do you
perfectly
like
fine
that?
being mean to dipshits like you. That's
Ooh.
fine.
Dipshit.
Okay. I think I've been quite nice to you, but sure.
I don't care. You're wrong. And you refuse to accept that you're wrong. And you keep saying, oh, I don't know the implication of my worldview. I don't know how we would go about the bathroom bans. I don't know, but I just know that I'm
If you can't do a British accent, just don't even try. I've already said that, but I'm going to keep saying it because this is embarrassing.
right?
Do you think you know my worldview?
I've gotten a pretty... Actually, I don't. I don't even think you know it. I don't think you've sat here
Oh,
and
I know
thought
my
through... I don't think you've sat here and thought through, well, what is the implication of keeping trans women out of women's bathrooms? How does that look? And I'll tell you how that looks. Genital inspections. Is that what you want?
Not personally, no.
Yes. So then
I don't think
just
that
let
would
trans
ever
women use the
happen,
bathroom. Just let trans women use the bathroom.
I don't think that would happen. I don't think anywhere's going to pay for people to inspect genitals.
You're right.
I don't think it will be constitutional or anything like that.
You're right. What's probably going to happen, okay, is that there are going to be people who point out who they think are trans, okay? And a lot of the times they're going to be wrong. And it doesn't
The
matter if they're
trans
wrong
linchpin,
anyway,
very
okay?
true.
Because it's just not a very appropriate or good thing to do in a functional society. Just let people use the bathroom they want to use. They're not hurting anybody.
It's not an appropriate thing to do in a functional society.
No, it is not an appropriate thing to say, well, I think that you have the wrong genitalia and you should not be in here. That's not your business.
Well, I mean, it's a women's bathroom. Like, surely it is a woman's business if they're in there.
It's not anybody's business what you're packing. Why are you so cucked to this? You're a trans woman. Why are you so cucked to this?
Yeah, you
I just
fucking
interested.
cock.
You're not just interested. You're
Cuck?
cucked to this idea. You've told me, not told me, you said during your stream earlier, because I was listening, that you don't even use public bathrooms. That's cuck shit. That's cuck behavior. Just go
You-
to the bathroom.
Trans woman, you are afraid of using public bathrooms because you don't want to get fucking hate crimed. Cuck behavior. Pussy. Bitch made. Oh. Come on. Is this real? Please tell me this is fake. Oh.
I haven't gone anywhere in a pretty long time that there'd be a women's bathroom to use, so I don't know which one I'd
Okay,
use
well,
at this
maybe you
point.
should touch some grass.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out there.
Good one.
Well, yeah, people give me a lot of life advice. You know, it's fine. It's fine. It's fair enough. You know, I know why people do it, and it's fine. You know, you can do that. That's fine. How come women can't be misogynist to each other, but trans people can be transphobic?
What are you talking about?
That was something you said.
Something I said. When did I say that?
Yeah, a woman can't be misogynist.
I never said a woman can't. I never said a woman can't be misogynist. They absolutely can. There are plenty of women who are misogynists. What are you talking about?
Okay, that's fine. It was in one of your videos. I didn't remember too well.
Mary, you gotta have clips ready. You gotta have clips ready, Mary. You can't just be shooting blanks like this. You gotta have the clips. Clip it, Mary. Clip it.
Okay, well, if you can find that, let me know, because I have no idea what the context there is. But
That's
women
okay,
can absolutely
that's
be misogynists.
Yeah, that's fine. And like can a black person be racist to a white person?
Individually, sure.
Okay, fair enough.
But there's not a, I would say there's not a systemic element to it. But yeah, an individually a black person can be racist toward a white person, yes.
That's fair enough. Oh, what was gender dysphoria? How do you define gender dysphoria?
That's a little complicated, but basically it's just if I had to simplify it, it's just a misalignment of a person's gender, a person's sex at birth with their gender assigned at birth.
That's gender incongruence.
Okay, this is my understanding of what gender dysphoria is. You
Yeah,
are looking
gender
at yourself.
dysphoria.
You're looking at yourself in the mirror. You see a gender. You see.
Ooh, Mary W. Gender dysphoria is the feeling of discomfort or dissatisfaction that stems from the misalignment between one's assigned and identified gender and or sex. Again, I hate to be pedantic, you guys, but if you want to be the king of trans people, you got to be hitting these nails on the head. The dysphoria is the feeling. The incongruence is like the state of being. So. Pedantry!
See, like, sexual aspects of that is typical of one gender that you wish were or were not there.
Yeah, it's just unhappiness with your gender. It's got nothing to do with
Yep,
your
exactly.
identity
There you go.
matching or not matching your body.
Mary's back on it. Let's go. Let's go, Mary. Let's go.
And it's best treated with gender affirmation therapy.
Well, potentially.
That is literally the truth. That is the best treatment for gender. That is the best treatment for gender dysphoria. Gender
I think that
affirmation.
really depends on the case, no?
Okay, what's the alternative?
Well,
Ooh, hang on. We're gonna let this go. Hang on.
it's not a great idea to transition someone that is then going to go back on it.
Well, some people do, and we can't help that. But the vast majority of people, and really all gender affirmation is, okay, especially for kids who are like 6, 7, 8 years old, is saying, you know, you have Tommy who wants to go by Sally now and wear a dress. So what's wrong with that?
I mean, wearing a dress by itself is fine. It depends if you're doing an awful lot of other stuff to, you know, affirm something that they might just grow out of. I don't think going in as a kid is a great idea.
Like what? Like, so Tommy can't be Sally? You can't just.
Well, I don't know if you should be changing
call
your
her
child's
Sally?
name just because they think they're a girl at like the age of 8 or something. That sounds a bit much to me.
But that's part of the treatment. Because Tommy
Well,
is
the problem is,
Tommy is a gendered name for boys.
well, yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Wearing a dress doesn't make you female.
No, but it does help alleviate the gender dysphoria, so I think it's fine.
But it's like the thing is, with affirming, you're kind of loading the dice. And if they're going to then go through some treatments that they might regret.
What do you mean loading the dice?
Well, if you change a kid's name, it's going to be quite embarrassing if in a couple of years they're going to like go back on it.
They can just change the name back.
Well, yeah, but there's like the social pressure attached to it now. The fact you're going to go back and have to deal with people.
This is like the number one criticism of affirmation care only, is that you kind of like create a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the argument is that if you have a kid who is expressing like wanting to transition socially, we'll just say socially because, you know, it's a kid or whatever, that by affirming the change of pronouns or, you know, dress or whatever it is, that you're essentially ensuring that they're never going to desist or change. Because it's true, like if you, I don't know, I'm sure everybody here at some point in their life was a teenager. It's really embarrassing to like walk back things that you say with confidence, especially when you're younger and your ego is incredibly fragile, right? So if you, I don't know, when I was younger, the fad was everybody was bisexual. Okay, that was the fad. Everyone was bisexual. Every girl that wanted attention and wanted to be popular was bisexual, even if they weren't. That was the thing. Okay, every generation has their thing where everybody's like goth or punk or bi or gay or whatever. Like every generation has like that kind of thing, right? So when I was growing up, it was bisexual. Everybody was bisexual. Okay, to walk that back in a setting, like a social setting, like school, like if you're in high school or something, that's incredibly embarrassing. And so a lot of times, especially when you're young and you're impressionable and you care a lot about what other people think about you, kind of making big shifts like that is difficult and it can be challenging. And I think that's a fair point to bring up. But the argument is that in attacking affirmation only care is that you create a self-fulfilling prophecy because you essentially ensure that they are going to persist because of the social ostracization that will come with walking back that identity, okay? So the question is, what do we do with people that present as being gender dysphoric, and we want to let them kind of test out an identity? The answer is, very simply and plainly put, is that young people spend a lot of time, an insane amount of time, trying out different things to see what fits, what works. You're kind of growing into your own human being in these developmental years, right? You're figuring out what's important to you. You're figuring out what you want to do with your life. You're figuring out what kind of person you want to be. You're figuring out everything, right? You're like a newborn baby just learning how to walk, but socially, so to speak, right? The answer very clearly is that these kinds of explorations are pretty harmless in general. And you can make the argument that there is like a significant degree of embarrassment if you're reverting from these previously stated identities, okay? So if you say, everybody at John Smith Elementary or John Smith High School, I'm gay, and everybody's like, oh my god, that's such a good, wow, okay. If it comes out later that you're not actually gay, that can be a little embarrassing. The answer, in my opinion, and my opinion is the correct opinion, so if you disagree with me, enjoy being wrong, okay? The correct answer is that we don't make a big deal about these things. We just kind of make it like like, Jane wants to go by Jim. Whatever, cool. Like, Jane's wearing pants today. Oh, okay, cool. Tom is wearing a dress to school. Whatever. Like, by making these not big issues, you allow people the flexibility to kind of experiment with it without it being, like, cemented, right? Because traditionally, people will come out and everybody's like, oh my god, it's so stunning and brave. You know, it's like, it's kind of like Munchausen by proxy almost. Like, everybody's like, oh my god, it was stunning and brave. And what ends up happening is that people feel pressured to fulfill that role. And sometimes that can even happen with adults. But the issue is not necessarily affirming people. The issue is the way that we sensationalize people who come out and people who are trying out different things and treating it like it's a permanent thing. Okay, everybody just needs to be like way more chill about this kind of shit and it wouldn't be an issue. It's not a question of saying like, oh, you want to be called Jack instead of Jane. Okay, it's not a question of that. It's like, how do we respond to that? What does that look like? How are we modeling how to make this like an okay thing to do? Like, that's really the question, right?
People being like, oh, hey, remember when you were a girl? You know, stuff like that. Like, kids are horrible to each other, you know?
Yeah.
So it is kind of loading it.
It's not. I don't know what you mean by loading it. It's literally just the best. It is
They're more
clinically
likely
the
to
best treatment that
transition.
we have, huh?
They're more likely to transition if affirmed.
Yeah, because the alternative is keeping them in the closet.
Well, yeah, but they might just grow out of it. And what if they get like a mastectomy?
Yeah, they
or
might, but
something
we can't see the future, and most of them don't.
Where do you get that most of them don't?
It's from statistics that I've seen.
And what if we didn't affirm them? Wouldn't there be more not going through with it?
The alternative is saying, no, actually, you're a boy and you need to wear boys' clothes and keep your boy's name, and then they get anxiety and depression. Is that a good alternative?
Well, I need to see a specific case. I've never heard of that specifically happening. You know?
You've never heard of people with gender dysphoria who are not affirmed having anxiety and depression, and you're a trans woman?
Well, I mean, you're putting it in a way that necessarily will happen. You know?
9 times out of 10, it does. Gender dysphoria. Most of the time, the problem with it is secondary depression and anxiety. That's the dysphoric element. Like that's the result of the dysphoric element.
Well, sure, but I mean, people experience that for a lot of different reasons, and I mean,
yeah,
is that worse?
And in this
is that worse
case,
cutting someone's breasts off and then they regret it? You know?
In this case, the best way forward is, first of all, you ask the kid, well, what do you want? What is it about your body that you don't like that causes anxiety and depression? Kids can sometimes know what they want. There are certain
adults
things.
don't even always know why they're depressed or anxious.
Okay, well then we should just take it away for everybody then. Don't let anybody get any surgery then. Because
Well,
they
no,
might regret
I mean,
it, right? Because they might regret
We
it.
don't have to go straight to the extreme case just
Sure
because
do.
it's
But
problems.
you
I
might
mean,
regret it. So why
no, it's
should
doing
you
the
allow
thing.
kids to-
I mean, she's not wrong. Is like, the solution is that we just do like more comprehensive care, right? Like that would be the solution. And I think that that's fair is like, you know, somebody says like, I'm depressed because, you know, XYZ, whatever the fuck. It's like, okay, well, let's talk about that. Let's kind of unpack that. Let's work on fixing that. Okay. And there's a lot of different things that we can work on or talk about to try to address this issue. Jumping right to, you know, like medical intervention and shit like that, I think is rarely appropriate, especially with children. But it's like there's a lot of things that can go into it before we just say we're getting rid of care for everybody. And that's something that's been happening a lot with, Scandinavian countries that kind of led the charge as far as affirmation only went, and the Dutch model specifically, is that streamlining medical transition doesn't really alleviate a lot of these issues. It can, and in some cases it does, but there's like there's a whole lot of other things that go into it, and kind of looking at through a comprehensive lens is probably the best way to do it, where it's like, why don't we talk about it? Why don't we try to understand this? Because like you can have a feeling and not really understand where the root of that feeling comes from. And sometimes you have to do a little bit of work to understand like what that feeling is, where it's coming from, what it means, like what can I do to fix it? What are my options? And that's completely fine to do. Like there is a middle ground between like your kid says, I feel like a girl today, and then we like inject them with hormones like same day, you know, like in Spider-Man where Green Goblin and the chamber like fills up with the green gas, and he's like, blah, 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 and then he comes out and he's Green Goblin. It's like that, but for trans kids. Like we don't have to do that, okay? But we also don't have to go, fuck you, you can transition when you're 25, get fucked. Like there are steps in between. Like this is correct, right? This is correct. There are things that we can do to make this care like more helpful, more useful, more wraparound, more comprehensive to address all the different issues that can come up, because it's true that there is secondary anxiety and depression that comes with being trans, but there are also other things that we can do to tackle that. Just transitioning on its own usually doesn't just make your depression and anxiety go away. Usually there's other things that you can do as well in partnership with transition to kind of work on those things. Like comprehensive care is really the ultimate solution to a lot of this stuff, but comprehensive care is lame and gay and nobody cares about it, okay?
Surgery. You might have regretted it. You might regret it tomorrow. You might wake up and say, I wish I'd just kept my dick. Right?
But I'm not going to.
But you might. You don't know that.
I do know
What do you do? Oh, you do know that. So you can predict the future?
Yeah.
Yes. I can too.
I'm
too.
I'm just using your logic. I'm just using your logic.
I'm not a child.
But you already just said that sometimes adults don't know what they want.
Yeah, true. Do you not agree with that?
It's a true statement, but in the context of this conversation, you're saying that adults sometimes don't know, like adults like aren't responsible beings that can make decisions on their own.
That's not what I'm saying.
Sometimes they
That's
can't.
We don't always
No.
know what we want. We often will think something's what we want, but actually it isn't. You know, that's just how it is.
Children, they understand the concept of gender by the age of 2, and they identify with one gender or the other by the age of 4.
How do they understand gender by 2? What do you mean by that?
What I mean is they can pick out what's considered a girl's, quote unquote, a girl's plaything or color or
Time to be pedantic. Okay, the idea is like the conceptualization of self happens usually at a very young age. Usually it's cited around like 4. But so like the idea is, and if anybody has ever been around a baby before, if you take a newborn baby and you hold the newborn baby in front of a mirror, the baby's like, what the actual fuck is going on right now? It's like worse than if you hold your cat to a mirror. The baby's like, holy shit. Like they don't really understand that they're like a thing. They don't understand that like that's them. They don't have any concept of that. And then obviously the older that you get, you kind of develop like a sense of self. Like you understand that I am me, other people are others. There's like a name for this theory. I don't know what the name is off the top of my head, but it's like the idea that kids will understand, 1, social roles, 2, be able to self-identify with a social role, and 3, assimilate into that social role. Usually happens around like the age of kindergarten is what he's addressing. And that's true, is that's usually how that's developed. It's not necessarily that they have like, they've bought into, you know, big gender and gender ideology and the cult of gender, but they have a perception of themselves, what they are, and then how to assimilate into what they are based on what everybody else is doing. That's where that comes from. Theory of mind. Thank you.
any indicator of a girl, and they can pick out versus what would be considered for a boy. Like by the time you're 2, you can say, well, a truck is a boy's toy and a doll is a girl's toy.
Right, but
so they have
that doesn't mean
elementary understanding.
That doesn't mean that they understand transition.
At the age of 4, like I said, by the age of 4, the overwhelming majority of kids identify with one gender or the other. So you can have a 4-year-old.
What does it even mean to identify with something?
So the new rule is you have to declare your gender at the age of 5. Otherwise, you're locked in for life. That's the new... Going forward, that's the new rule, okay? Is that by the age of 4, you have to declare what you are, and then that's what you are for life, okay? That's the new rule. Thank you, Alec Gunter.
By saying I'm a boy or I'm a girl. I understand myself as a boy or I understand myself as a girl. Your brain is developed enough at 4 in order to understand that.
So let's say a child makes that decision at 4, that they're going to transition. They go through all the steps, and then in their early adulthood, they start changing their mind. They've made that decision as a 4-year-old.
In the vast majority of cases, that's not what happens. This is an appeal to the fringes.
It doesn't matter, like, this can happen.
It does matter, because the alternative is that 4-year-old grows up, goes through childhood, and then puberty, that they probably don't want, all right? And then they're way higher likelihood to have depression, anxiety, and suicidality. That's the alternative. So that's the...
And I personally hate this doomer pill mentality. There are plenty of people who transition later in life, and they're very successful in their transition. They're happy, they're healthy, they're live, laugh, loving. The idea that anybody who does not medically transition as a child is like fucked forever in all of eternity and is going to live a life in pain and anguish and is going to die sad and alone is just absolutely fucking ridiculous. There is benefit to addressing issues with gender identity in youth to a certain extent. I agree with that completely. There are benefits to that. But it's not like if you don't medically transition at the age of 9, that you are going to be wrought with depression and anxiety and death and despair for the rest of your fucking life. That's just not true.
Ice rolling.
Well, I don't know. Like, I think not being able to breastfeed
I know
kids
you don't
that you
know.
might want. Like,
Oh, we're
I
getting
think that's
mad.
more suicidality as well. There's harm on both sides of the
We're
equation.
getting mad.
This is silly. This is ridiculous. We have
It's
ample
ridiculous.
data. We have ample data.
fucking
that not
ridiculous.
affirming somebody's gender
You
in
stupid
their
bitch!
formative years can cause anxiety, depression, and suicidality. It is a high likelihood
What's
of
the
doing
data
that.
based on?
Self-report.
What do you mean what's it based on? It's based on
Like testimony?
the medical
Yeah,
criteria
self-report.
for anxiety, depression, and suicidality. How
Self-report.
else do you
Yeah, but
determine
it's
if
based on
somebody's...
testimony.
Yeah, self-report.
How else would you determine if somebody's depressed?
I'm not sure.
If they kill themselves.
You're not
Good
sure,
answer.
right? So yeah, it's based on testimony. You go in, you take a depression test, and if it turns out that
You guys, did you study for your depression test? I'm scared that I'm not going to pass. It's not a test, it's an assessment.
like they ask you a series of questions, I can't remember the name of the test, but they ask you a series of questions.
Man who studies psychology, they give you a depression test, not an assessment. They give you a test. And if you fail, you're getting institutionalized. Get fucked.
About whether or not you're depressed, and if it comes up positive, you can only go off of that person's answers.
If it comes
And
up
if it
positive?
then that person's depressed. You have no
It's like a fucking AIDS test. It's either positive or negative. That's totally how psychological testing works. Yes, it's like an AIDS test. It's positive or negative. You have AIDS or you have depression. Very true, very true.
measuring stick. We have no magical tool for it. That's just what we use. It's an assessment.
Oh, there we go. Right.
It's a subjective assessment. That's what it's
Can a
called.
4-year-old understand that kind of thing?
A 4-year-old can be depressed, yes.
And can they understand the implications of beginning transition?
They can. What's wrong with a 4-year-old changing their name and wearing clothing, like a different style of clothing? What's wrong with that?
Because it can lead to further steps, which can lead to
which is the issue that
having
she
parts of you
identified
taken off,
earlier.
becoming sterile, and then you've got your whole rest of your life to
But you're saying,
potentially
so you're saying there's nothing wrong in itself with a child just going, like, just having a different name. And by the way, you don't even really have to have a whole lot of surgery, thanks to puberty blockers, if we just, go through the proper steps here. If we go
Yeah,
through the
because your
proper
genitals don't grow properly and they like atrophy sometimes, right?
steps. That's extraordinarily rare.
Don't people also not grow properly in general? They end up like getting dwarfed by their peers.
Puberty
They end up
blockers,
getting like, isolated and stuff.
puberty blockers are reversible.
How reversible? Fully?
Very reversible. Like the overwhelming majority of the time, it is entirely reversible.
Doesn't it depend
You get
on
off the
when you take them?
you get off the puberty blockers and you go through normal.
So I actually have been looking into this, and if anybody has any links or anything relevant to this, I'm actually really interested. So I read recently that a lot of the literature that exists on puberty blockers, and puberty blockers have been used for a really long time to treat precocious puberty. So a lot of the data that we have is, collected from in the past when we used it, or we still use it now, I guess I should say, to treat precocious puberty, which is when you delay the onset of puberty because somebody goes through puberty too early. Sally is 7 years old and gets a period. Okay, we have to put Sally on puberty blockers because this isn't safe. This isn't developmentally appropriate. We have to kind of pause this, and then when it becomes developmentally or age appropriate, we'll take Sally off of puberty blockers, and then she'll just be in sync with everybody else around her. Okay. In reading about this, there is little to no literature about precocious puberty in males, which is something that I found really interesting. And the literature that does exist for puberty blockers in males is mostly used in geriatric populations, and I didn't know that. So I'm really interested to hear about puberty blockers being used in males before the natal onset of puberty, so not in geriatric populations, to see what the long-term effects are with taking them before Tanner stage 2, and then when they go off of them, what happens? Because I don't think there's a lot of literature on that personally, and so. I'm so sorry, Brianna Wu, but we're actually not giving puberty blockers to males. We're only giving puberty blockers to females. Trans men win again.
I shouldn't say normal, biologically assigned puberty of that person.
And there's no effect of doing that later than naturally.
There might be. I mean, usually the effect is like a difference in height, or in very rare cases there are certain bone problems, but those can be circumvented by taking vitamin D and calcium supplementation.
But how's someone going to feel about having bone problems because of a decision they made as a child that they then went back on as a teenager?
The likelihood of you
That
having
would be painful for me.
the likelihood of you having significant you're talking about this is another appeal to the fringes. You're talking about a very, very small minority of
answering,
people.
though.
It's not likely. It's not
Just
likely.
because it's
I am
a fringe
answering.
case.
This is a problem that does not really exist.
Well, no,
It's
it
not reflected
does.
in the data.
People desist, people detransition after having had
At a very
mastectomies
low
and
rate.
stuff. Well, how do you know what the rate is?
Because we've done studies on it.
Like what? What study?
I can look some up if you want.
That's fine, but I mean, the point is, you go through puberty blockers, you potentially cause irreversible things to yourself, and then you've got your whole life.
It's a
potentially regret
percentage
it.
of a percentage of a chance.
But you won't speak to those examples. You won't speak to anyone.
That's
that
because it's
that.
there's risks and complications present with any medical procedure. The doctors are in charge of weighing the alternative. And
So why do unnecessary medical procedures?
The alternative is that a child has anxiety, depression, and suicidality. That's the alternative. So if that's what we're talking about, then a tiny fraction of a chance the child gets bone problems later is negligible.
Or becomes infertile and want kids, or has a mastectomy then wants to breastfeed their child but can't. There's quite a few different scenarios.
Puberty blockers do not cause infertility.
No, the problem is, if you go on
I, again, have read, or at least it's unknown, if it causes infertility in males. Only because there's a question of what blocking puberty before Tanner stage 2 does, because I know in the case of Jazz Jennings that she did not develop enough penile tissue in order to have a successful vaginoplasty. That's why they had to use different tissue in order to make like an adequate depth of a canal. So my question would be is if causing puberty in males causes, stagnated or decreased penile growth, what that would look like when and if they resume like natal puberty. Like does that catch up? Like does it go back to normal? Like I'm curious about that. I haven't really read anything about that.
puberty blockers, overwhelmingly, you're probably going to go on to the next stage, HRT.
Gee, why is that? Why do most people on puberty blockers go on to the next stage? I wonder why that is.
Because of that affirmation. Because
they like living as that gender.
Do you know it's because they like it? They might be getting more
most of the time, yeah. Because as long as you're giving them the option, you're saying, hey, that's what puberty blockers are for, is to give you the option.
But it's overwhelmingly leading a certain direction. It's not giving the option.
No, it's not. You're going back to the doctor. If you're having regular checkups, your doctor's asking you questions about how you're doing mentally and all that. Your mental health checks out, your physical health checks out. You're doing fine on the puberty blockers. We're going to keep you on the puberty blockers as long as you think that this is still what you want. And then when you're about 16 years old, what?
Like your doctors are crazy. They'll transition almost anyone in the US.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Like I've read testimonials of people. The lengths they will go to. They had one person that they refused to treat because they were like hallucinating in the consultancy room. Everyone else they'll treat. I've watched DID patients coming out with like mastectomies. Why are they being treated if they're that, isn't that crazy?
I think that with any kind of comorbidities like that, you have to be like exceptionally careful with the way that you move forward with medical intervention for transition related issues. Like I'm not saying like, you take it completely off the table, but I think that there is like a greater degree of like oversight that needs to be done for people that are experiencing other psychological issues, right? Like, of course, I think that that's something that's reasonable, though. I don't think that's like an insane take to be like, oh, if somebody has like pretty significant comorbidities or other psychological issues that might affect their ability to offer informed consent or affect their judgment, that maybe we should, offer some more interventions. I think the problem is like mental health care in general is like abysmal, especially in the United States and in a lot of other countries as well. It's like the idea of like wraparound intensive services doesn't really exist. So like there's not really a lot of collaboration with a lot of different entities when you're talking about this kind of stuff. So I think that that is the ideal, right? That would be the ideal, that you have kind of comprehensive wraparound services where somebody's getting like all of their needs addressed. It's not just like, oh, well, this is an issue. We're just going to go ahead with like medical transition or whatever, when there's other things that probably should be considered or talked about. Like, and again, I'm not saying you take it off the table entirely. Like there are people that have issues or other mental illnesses or whatever that benefit greatly from transition. I'm not denying that, but I think that requires just like a little bit more tact. You know what I mean?
Hold on, DID patients?
Yeah, like this? People on TikTok who either have DID or pretend to, and they get things like mastectomies and stuff. Like,
why are we talking about TikTok? What I'm saying is, I don't know how we got here. What I'm saying is, as long as you're going to your doctor, getting regular checkups, and your doctor knows what they're doing, and the vast majority of the time they do, and that's why you trust them as your doctor, right?
How do you know?
How do you know? Okay, so you just don't go to the doctor then. Just don't go.
It's not what I'm saying. I'm asking how do you know?
You don't trust your doctor though. You don't trust your doctor, so don't go.
That's not what I'm saying.
You don't trust doctors though, so just don't go. You have a heart attack?
It's not that I don't trust doctors.
You're saying you don't trust doctors.
They know that this is right.
Yeah, you don't trust them.
You're essentializing.
No, I'm not. You don't trust doctors.
No, I'm asking what if there's an issue.
Right. Sometimes there is, but the overwhelming majority of the time, there's not. And doctors are the ones who are best suited to make those judgment calls.
So we should just forget about any fringe cases. They don't matter.
I didn't say forget about them. They should be studied and used as much as possible. No, I didn't know.
Every time I brought up an example,
you're talking about taking a child. You're talking about taking a child and subjecting them to potentially suicide. Because there's a fraction of a yes, you are. There's a fraction of a chance they might have a bone problem from puberty blockers, right?
This is like manipulative.
That's what you want.
They'll kill themselves. Give them what they want, they'll kill themselves.
At a higher rate, yes. There's a 40% suicidality rate. Have you heard of this? Many people are saying this.
What's the juvenile suicide rates in anorexia? It's pretty high. 3 to 20 or 3 to 30%. What is it in depression? Suicide's 50%. What's anxiety? Just like looking this stuff up. Oh, anxiety is pretty low. What about PTSD? Significantly higher risk, can be as high as 23%. Interesting. Okay, just curious. Because like the suicide argument, I think is like a kind of a weak one. Like I think that it's fair to be pragmatic and frank about outcomes of people's choice to treat or to not treat certain issues that their kids have. I think that that's fair. But I do agree that like a lot of the time, it is used in kind of a nefarious way where it's like, if you don't do this, they're going to kill themselves. And I think I'll continue to reiterate that I think it does a disservice to people that, you know, do live happy and healthy lives as like trans adults. But that's just me being annoying.
Of trans people, yes.
Yeah, not just like kids.
Okay.
And by the way, why would we teach kids about like trans identities if it's going to bring them into that group? I wouldn't want my kid to like learn about this stuff. I'm trans now. Oh shit.
Hang on, I'm gonna roleplay as Xander Hall really quick. Why would you teach your kids about black people if you don't want your kids to be black? Curious. That was my best Xander Hall impression. Thank you. I'm here all week.
Trans. You're literally trans. Why would you not want your kid to understand that it's possible to be trans?
Well, I wouldn't want them having ideas put in their head because truthfully, I don't
but
know.
this is all like fucking conspiracy baiting. Like this is bullshit.
Well, no,
like there's nobody trying to stick ideas in people's heads and
I didn't
trans
even
them.
finish my point. So like what I'm saying is, you teach these kids about these like different gender identities and stuff. Are we giving them words to put their feelings to, or are we telling them how it is? Are we giving the framework to them to then pick out what they identify as? Is that not putting thoughts into their head? Like, why do that? Why not let them figure it out themselves and maybe teach them in secondary school?
Most of the time they do figure it out themselves. In fact, that's usually how it works. Is they like there are a lot of parents. I could send you videos. There are a lot of parents who are just normal, average, everyday parents. Sometimes there was a conservative family who had a trans kid, and they had a trans kid because the kid came up to them and said, "Hey, they were born male," and the kid said, "I'm actually a girl. I'm a girl." And the parents were like, "What do we do about it? I've never heard of this. This is a new thing for me." And then they take the kid to a psychiatrist, and guess what the psychiatrist says? Your kid's trans.
Yeah, of course they do. APA, innit? They love that. Or a psychiatrist, maybe.
You not trust
no,
APA?
No, they're dodgy. I don't know much about them, but
they're dodgy. Dodgy how?
Careful. Be careful. No, I don't know much about them.
So what do you? So where should somebody go if they're suicidal?
A hospital.
I don't know. See your friends. See your.
You don't know. That's you just don't know anything, right?
You're asking a very general question.
I don't know.
I
don't know. You know, it just is what it is. I don't know anything really. It's just I just have these very fun ideas about why we should restrict trans care for people. I don't really know anything though about like the implications of my worldview. So I just don't know. I don't know, right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You don't know. You just don't know. Like, where does somebody go if they're suicidal?
Woman moment.
Where does somebody go if they're suicidal? Just answer the question. Where does somebody go if they're suicidal? Where do they go?
A hospital.
It depends on the person. Like, to someone that can, like,
No, it
to their
doesn't.
family, to their friends.
No, it doesn't.
Like,
You might.
oh,
But
everyone goes to the same thing if they're suicidal.
if you are experiencing overwhelming suicidality, you should go to a psychiatrist.
Oh, you should not go to a psychiatrist. You should go to the hospital. Psychiatrists do medication management. Psychiatrists don't really do therapy. Remember what I said earlier? Remember when he's like, as somebody who studies psychology. Remember what I said that earlier? It's going to be important.
Or, like, see a friend or a family member, right? Talk to them.
Or a professional who
Depends
studied
on the
this shit and can
person.
help you.
Yeah, but they don't know your life, do they?
You can explain your life to them. That's their job, is to interpret that for you. They're psychiatrists. They've studied it. You don't
That's
trust
not
psychiatrists?
what psychiatrists do.
Everyone that's suicidal.
You don't trust
should go to a
psychiatrists. Just say that you don't trust psychiatry. Just say it.
But that's not what I'm saying.
You wouldn't go to a psychiatrist if you were feeling suicidal. You would go to a psychiatrist for medication management. That's what psychiatrists do. That's why they go to medical school. That's because they do the medication side of things. They don't do therapy. That's usually a therapist or a counselor. That's not a therapist.
You are saying that. You're saying if you're suicidal,
No,
you
you're
should just go
saying
to a
that.
friend or family member. You don't have to go to a
Actually, yeah, it
psychiatrist.
depends on the person.
It does depend on the
Psychiatrists might help
person.
some of these
And
people,
sometimes
so-
the family or friend can help. You're right. Sometimes they can help. But if you're suicidal, you should go to a psychiatrist or a mental health professional.
A
That's
psychiatrist.
the first thing
guys.
that
A
like, every
psychiatrist.
fucking doctor and normal person recommends. Go get mental health.
Yeah, the very first thing that if you're feeling suicidal, you should schedule an appointment through BetterHelp. Call today, guys. I'm sponsored. No, it's like you go if you're like actually like on the brink of fucking killing, you go to the hospital. You go to the hospital, okay, and you get the little grippy sock vacation, and they get all your shit in order, and they figure out how to help you outpatient way. Okay, that's what you do. You don't just full send it. You don't like schedule an appointment on BetterHelp and wait, however long to get seen by a therapist. No, wrong answer.
Help.
It's a bit ableist.
Ableist.
Normal. Yeah, but I'm trans. I know I'm.
No,
a
I
bit
said
abnormal,
normal,
but-
like as in smart, as in they have an IQ that's not 30. Okay, that's what I meant.
Good one.
Okay, do you know a lot of people like that?
Yeah, most
Oh, like
people.
me, fair enough. Does getting angry in debates usually help you, do you find?
I get angry at dipshits. So
Well, yeah, but it's
Good
just a
one.
conversation. It's not personal, right?
it's a conversation that I'm having with somebody whose IQ is below room temperature.
Good
Okay.
one.
I
So
don't know
that's
what
why I'm
room
getting
temperature is like in Ohio. It's quite low around here, so I don't know about that.
Well, that's what you're giving right now, so I don't know what else to tell you. You keep saying,
No,
I don't know, I
that's
don't
what
know.
you're
When I have news for you. When you are suicidal, you should seek mental help. What a concept. I know, that's like crazy
Well,
that
find
anybody would
someone
ever
to
think
talk
that.
to. Talk
Oh,
about
do
your
both.
feelings.
You can do both. Why not go to a psychiatrist? What's wrong with going to a psychiatrist?
Because psychiatrists do medication management, Alec. They do medication management. They aren't yappers. That's a therapist. Therapists are the yappers. Psychiatrists see you like once every 3 months and they're like, how's that medication working for you? And you say, it's fine. And they say, okay, see you in 3 months. I just sent you a refill. That's okay.
I'm not saying there is. I don't know how we
You're
got
not saying
here.
there is. So you're saying that the psychiatrist can help, right?
Potentially.
Okay, potentially. So you trust the psychiatrist.
But it depends on the
Right?
psychiatrist. Like, I don't
But in
understand
general,
why...
you trust the idea of going to a psychiatrist for mental health care if you are having suicidal thoughts, correct?
Maybe, but like...
What do you
when
mean,
look
maybe?
into
Give me a
it,
straight answer.
like,
You're
for
so
what?
dumb.
Mary, you are being a little pedantic here. Okay, you are being a little bit of a butthole. Okay, you could just say, yeah. I would say, yeah, you should probably just go to the psychiatrist, or I shouldn't say psychiatrist. Ah, I fell into my own trap. You should just be like, yeah, I think that you should probably just like go to the doctor and seek like mental health help or whatever. Like, yeah, like maybe you could like talk to people who are close to you in life, like ask for help. Like blanket Mary advice, just say like ask for help. There you go, boom, done. And then we don't have to do this. Well, I don't know. Technically, it's like, well, what if the psychiatrist was Hitler? Then I would say no. Like we don't have to do these distinctions. That's okay, Mary. You can just take it. It's okay.
Aji, are you a troll? Are you trolling? Is this whole bit just like,
trolling.
did you start your YouTube channel as some kind of big troll to like get under to rustle people's
this is
knees?
real. I
Like,
can't pull this out.
what are you? Like, what is this?
What is this? I'm just
Should
asking
somebody
a
go to a
trans ally
psychiatrist
help me out.
if they're having suicidal thoughts? I have news for you. The answer is
Only
yes.
trans people like
The answer is yes.
Not
You
a
should go to a
psychiatrist.
fucking psychiatrist if
You
you're having
only like
suicidal
trans
thoughts.
people.
Huh?
You only like trans people and they agree with you.
Yes.
You're right.
No, do you? I'm asking you. I'm not telling you. I don't know how you think.
I don't hate you because you're trans. I hate you because you're stupid and wasting my time.
You're not. I don't hate you because you're fat. You're fat because I hate you. Fucking own Mogged. You're never gonna recover from this.
I don't think that's true at all. I'm a, you know, I thought allies would be like pillars of the community. You can go to them with questions.
Just because I'm
and
an
get some-
ally doesn't mean I have to kowtow to every one of your stupid, fucked up beliefs.
But don't you think conditional allyship isn't allyship at all?
It's not
True.
conditional. If you came to me and said, hey,
True.
I'm a trans woman, and also I think Jews should...
True, and then we're going to talk about Nazis again, but like, trues in chat, trues in chat, trues in chat. Conditional allyship is cancer, and Alec Gunter is the king of this. He loves trans people until you disagree with him. Look at the way that he talked to Marcus Dibbs. Look at the way that he talks to any trans person who disagrees with him. He loves trans people. He loves advocating for trans people until you say something that he doesn't like. What did he say? In regard to Marcus Dibbs, the offensive Tiesler, he said that he's not a man to him because he acts like a cuck. That's what he said. You can't be a man. I don't want you in the same category as me. You are not a man. That's what he said to Marcus Dibbs, a trans guy who disagreed with him. Conditional allyship is cancer and it is gay and it is the weapon of the enemy, okay? Personally, there's plenty of trans people that I don't support all of you bitches. Some of you bitches are very dumb. But that doesn't mean that you are ousted as a trans person because you have beliefs that I don't disagree with, okay? That's a no true Scotsman fallacy. And debate lord, cis king, saver of the trans, literally the transgender Moses, should know better than to play by those rules. But I just work here, guys.
are running the world and we should kill them all.
I
I'm
don't.
going to say, hey, that's pretty stupid and you're a bad person.
Yeah,
That's not me
I
being
say the same
transphobic.
too.
That's not me being transphobic.
I've said nothing of the
Right?
sort.
No, you haven't, but this is the end state of your logic.
No, it's not. You're speculating.
Yes, it is. You're saying because
Okay.
I disagree with you, you're doing Idpol. Because I disagree with you and you happen to be
Idpol.
trans, I'm not being a good trans ally, right? You want me to kowtow to every fucking thing you...
No, you're being a bad ally because you invalidate the identities of people that you disagree with because they disagree with you. That's what makes you a bad ally. Because allies actually just support people like in their identities and you want to see them have rights in the same way where it's like, if you're an ally to, let's say that we're allies to black people here, you guys. Let's say, okay, we love black people here. Okay, we're allies to the black community. That doesn't mean that if you come across a black conservative, you're like, you're not really black, or like, I don't respect you and your blackness, or like, you're a bad example of black people. That's like not your place as an ally to like set limitations and boundaries and all this other shit around like blackness because a black person dares disagree with you and your liberal opinions. And ironically enough, that's exactly what Alec Gunter did. Do you guys remember when Alec Gunter was on Jubilee? Do you guys remember that? He did the Jubilee Middle Ground, and he made everybody mad because he was like super fucking aggro, and he unironically was like, yes, I will save you black people from your conservative beliefs, like unironically said that. Do you guys remember that? Pepperidge Farm remembers.
You say
Well, no.
because you're trans.
You're aggressive towards me because you don't agree with me. It's a bit like the
Yes,
Mark
true.
Because I don't
Rutte
agree with
didn't
you,
say anything
yes.
wrong in that video.
Not even just because I don't agree with you. Because I don't agree with you, and also you're stupid. That's why we don't agree.
Is
Based.
being stupid a crime? Is that a bad thing necessarily?
Yes.
Sometimes it is.
Yes. Being stupid is a
It was
crime.
the
I
same with
agree.
the Marcus video. He said almost nothing like wrong, and you just were
No,
getting angry.
he
It's
didn't.
a bit jarring.
And
to be
Mary again, Mary, I know I'm giving you a lot of constructive criticism, Mary. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Just kidding. I hate you. No. This is where you come equipped with timestamps and receipts, okay? Because, again, let's rewind a little bit. When Alec Gunter made his video response to Marcus Dibbs, he literally said that he will not consider Marcus Dibbs a man because he doesn't want to share a category with him. And he said that he's not a man, he's a gender cuck. He's not a man, he doesn't perceive him as a man because he holds beliefs that Alec Gunter disagrees with. This is a great time to whip out the receipts. This is a great time to wheel out the cart that says, look, hypocrite. This is a great time to do that, okay?
I thought you were an ally.
What was the Marcus video? Is that the offensive T slur? I keep forgetting.
Yeah, there was a Spanish woman, I think, something like that, crying because she didn't want to tell someone she was trans and then they rejected her. He gave some pretty milquetoast advice, I thought, I don't know. But it's like, he's a terrible person, he's a grifter. It's like, what's he said?
If I recall correctly, he was shitting on her the entire time and saying, well, I just care about you, I just care about you. And people love to do that. They love to be like, well, actually, you're a terrible person, and also you're really fucking weird, and also, like, you should...
I mean, you can argue that Marcus Dibbs is like... And again... Selfless shill. I have a video going over Alec Gunter responding to Marcus Dibbs on my YouTube channel. Subscribe now. You can make the argument that Marcus was like kind of an asshole. That's Marcus's baseline. Marcus is an asshole. That's just kind of how he is. But the reality is that what he was talking about was the safety concerns around trans people not disclosing that they're trans to people when they meet them on dating apps or they meet them in real life, that it's dangerous, one, which it is, and two, it kind of destroys the integrity of a romantic relationship that you're looking to pursue in the first place, which, truthfully, I agree with. If you're trying to date somebody, like... that is your safe space, okay? That is your rock, okay? That is your shelter in the storm, okay? That is somebody that you can be unequivocally you around. Why would you build your relationship, one, on a misconception, and then two, hide an integral part of who you are from the person that you're hoping to build this long-term connection with? I think that's a fair criticism. And was Marcus kind of an asshole in explaining this? Yes, he was. That's Marcus Dibbs. He's an asshole, okay? But, like, the criticism that he was levying against the person in the video, it was a little bit concern trolling, but realistically what it was a trans guy letting somebody else know or making a video about how it's actually really fucking dangerous to just like go, oopsie, I'm trans, like right before you fuck somebody. That's how people get killed, okay? That's how people get murdered. And that's that's a fair piece of advice. If you're going to go, and I'll give the advice right now, so call me a transphobe if you want. If you're going to hook up with somebody and they don't know that you're trans, and you need to tell them before you go and like see them in real life and try and hook up with them, okay? Because that is unironically how people get fucking killed, okay? That is how you end up on an episode of Dateline NBC. That automatically enrolls you in the running for the Darwin Awards, okay? If you are going to have sex with somebody and you decide to surprise them that you are trans without knowing how they feel about trans people, there is a very likely chance that this person is going to fucking kill you. You should not do that, okay? You should let people know that you're trans, especially if you're pre-op. If you're post-op, I could see arguments in the other direction, of course. But if you're pre-op and you go to fuck somebody and you decide to like spring it on them last minute, they're like, we are very aware here as transgenderisms, okay, that the rates of violence against trans people is exceptionally high. Don't put yourself in that situation. Be smart, be safe, okay? Be safe. People are fucking crazy, all right? That is a really good way to get murdered. And I don't want any of you guys to get murdered. I love you guys, okay? I love you guys. Don't get murdered, okay? Be smart. Don't get murdered.
Not exist. But also, I just care about you, and I'm just giving you good advice. It's pussy shit. It's slimy.
It is good advice. Don't get murdered. Is good advice.
He means what he says.
It doesn't matter. If he means what he says, then he's stupid and slimy.
Okay.
Stupid and slimy. New gender just dropped. Stupid and slimy. That's my gender. Affirm me now.
I mean, I agree with you. Yeah, you said something like people who don't date trans people, if their preference is against that, are assholes.
If you don't date somebody specifically for the reason... Okay,
yes.
this is a nuanced conversation. If you don't date somebody specifically for the reason that they are a trans person, that does make you an asshole. Now, let's break this down a little bit. I won't date trans people, somebody says, right? Some guy says, well, I don't date trans women. Okay, why don't you date trans women? Well, I just don't like penises. Okay, that's fair. That's a genital preference. Okay, but what about somebody who has a vaginoplasty? Well, actually, I want kids. Actually, I want... It's literally like functional. During sex, it's like the same thing.
Yeah, but anyway. It's made of penis. So they
Alec Gunter, Chaser confirmed. He would know. I'm just kidding. I just don't care about genital preferences arguments, and I don't care at all about like any of this discourse. It's like, date whoever you want to date. I don't care. I might think, and people have a really hard time with inside and outside thoughts, I've noticed, and I think that's an issue of a lot of conflict with a lot of the trans stuff, so to speak. It's like inside thoughts versus outside thoughts, okay? Like, you don't have to date or fuck anybody for whatever reason you want. And you don't have to explain yourself. If somebody says, I would like to date you, and you say, no, thank you, not interested. that you don't debate somebody into dating you. You don't, argue your case. You don't beg and plead. That's incel shit, okay? Somebody says, I don't want to date you. Okay. Bye. Okay, easy peasy lemon squeezy, okay? Very simple. The problem is that people don't know what inside thoughts are. So people will say, like, I don't want to date you because you're trans, and I think that all trans people are gross and should be redacted. And then it's like, okay, well, that opens up an entire different conversation, and unfortunately, that's something we have to talk about, right? Because you can, even if your reasons for not dating somebody are bigoted, you can say, like, oh, I disagree with that reasoning, I think it's bigoted. Okay, that's one thing. But to go on further and say, like, no, we're going to make a logical argument and debate bro you into saying that, yes, you should date. Like, no, just let people be assholes. Like, they can be assholes. They're staying away from trans people. They're actively not fucking dating them. Is that not the outcome that we want? Let them be haters. Let them be haters over there, okay? The whole debating people into being okay with dating and fucking trans people, optical suicide, and it's a mistake. If people want to not date people for bigoted reasons, cool, you saved yourself the trouble. You saved yourself the trouble of dating a bigot. Congratulations, you dodged a bullet. You don't need to debate somebody about it. Fuck.
They have to like it a little bit to be okay.
Fellas, is it gay to have sex with a woman who has a vagina? Like, what are you talking about?
Yes.
If they're male, maybe. Does that concern you? Are you worried that you'd be gay if you were with a trans woman?
No. It doesn't matter.
it's wrong
But
to
I
be
do.
gay?
But here's the thing: I do want my own biological children. So
Do you think it's
if I
wrong
were-
to be gay, though?
No.
Super gay. The gayest.
But I am a gender abolitionist. So in my world,
Ugh.
like in my ideal world, gay people don't exist. You just have people who date other people.
This is our cis ally, you guys. We're never getting rights. In my ideal world, there wouldn't be any gay people. That's a sentence that was said aloud. With allies like this, who needs enemies?
Still have male sex.
You can still have males who have
homosexual.
you can still have males who have genital preferences for penises, and if you want to call that gay, you can. But our concept of gay would be very different than what it is now. Because right now,
Right.
being gay,
But it's still sex.
being gay.
I don't get it.
Because if you want to base your if you want to base the sexuality on the sexual parts, you can, and it's a little bit of a gray area when you're talking about sexuality in that regard. But when most people say that they're gay, they're talking about somebody who, like if they're a man, they're talking about somebody who like looks like a man, right? You're not necessarily thinking about their genitalia.
It really depends, because a lot of people base their sexuality in genitalia. Obviously, I don't think all gay people are like this very clearly, but there are some people that are very ideologically pure in the way that they practice their homosexuality. For example, gold star lesbians and so on and so forth. To some people, that is a focal point of their sexuality. And honestly, I mean, whatever, dude. If that's how you want to define your sexuality and build your entire sexuality or whatever the fuck, cool. Do it. Who cares? I don't care about the moral frogging about how other people decide who they do and don't want to date. It's there's no utility in trying to debate people into dating certain demographics of people. If anything, the people that you have to convince to date certain demographics of people are the people that you want to keep away from that demographic. If you have to debate a transphobe into wanting to date trans people, that's probably somebody that shouldn't be dating trans people in the first place. No, you would probably want to keep that person away from trans people. It just doesn't make any sense.
You might be, but not always. So,
Hi, Travis. Love you.
If you want to call it sexually gay, sure, but like I said, the concept in that world would be different.
Right.
And
I mean,
I just think people dating other people is how it should be. Gender and sexuality cease to exist.
But sex is still there. And people still prefer one or the other.
Yeah, and it's a genital preference, and that's fine.
Sure, I guess. I don't know.
I know you don't.
Were you worried about Buck's child, Buck Angel? Why is Buck Angel going to be a bad parent?
Because Buck Angel's a transmedicalist, so if his child comes to him and says, "Hey, Dad, I'm trans," he's going to say, "No, you're not until you have the X and Y procedure," and that's mental.
That's literally not what Buck Angel would say, and he fucking knows it. Come on. Come on. He wouldn't be like, "No, son, you're not a real man until you chop your titties off." Buck Angel would be like, "Oh, okay, you're trans." Don't get me wrong. Buck Angel is problematic in his own right, and has a long legacy of saying some of the most unhinged and deranged shit you could possibly imagine, okay? No love in my heart for Buck Angel, okay? But Buck Angel isn't nearly as fucking insane as a lot of people think, especially in regard to, his view on other trans people in the community. He hates, the trans trender stereotype or whatever the fuck, sure, that demographic, whatever. But in the context of, if his kid came to him and was like, "Dad, I'm trans," he would be like, "Oh, shit. Sick. Okay." I think that we're kind of embellishing a little bit in how fucking, cruel people think Buck Angel is he an asshole on Twitter? Sure. Who isn't an asshole on Twitter? I don't think that he would like bully his fucking child for coming out as being trans. I truthfully do not think that. I think that that's quite a stretch, personally. Okay.
Not just wrong thing. I'm just saying he's doing wrong thing.
He's mentally harming his child because he's not affirming
How
them.
so?
Or, because if you don't affirm trans children, you mentally harm them.
Is his child trans?
In theory, yes.
In theory?
My point is,
Buck Angel's child is trans in theory. This is worse than Trump's concept of a plan. Buck Angel's kid is trans in theory. What the fuck are you talking about? He's trans in theory. What? What do you mean? What do you mean he's trans in theory? What's happening right now?
Buck Angel would
I
not
could
be a
call you
good,
trans in theory.
Buck Angel would not be a good parent to a trans child, and there's always a chance that you have a trans child. If you can't be a
There's
good parent
always
to a
a
trans child, then you
chance.
shouldn't be a parent.
How do you know he'd be a bad parent to a trans child?
Because I know his stance on trans people.
Do you know him personally? Have you spoken to him?
Well, I was about to one time, but it never ended up happening. So, but
debate
it doesn't
cocked.
matter. Like if I've personally spoken to him, he puts his opinions all over the internet.
Yeah, it does, because you don't know him.
Debate
His
cocked.
opinions all over the internet. I didn't
That's not
personally know
what we know.
Hitler, but guess what? I can tell you he's probably a bad guy.
Oh yeah,
You
let's
don't
talk
know
about Hitler
opinions
some
on
more.
these guys, I
Yeah.
know you.
You
Yeah.
don't know
Bring up
Hitler,
Hitler
he's a bad
again.
guy.
Because of history, obviously.
Because of the things he did and said,
Buck Angel
right?
like Hitler?
Because of the things he did and said.
Buck Angel
That's
is
how I
like
know
Buck
Hitler.
Angel like Hitler?
Yes, Buck Angel is like Hitler confirmed. Oh my god.
That's
How's
exactly
Buck
what I'm
Angel
saying.
like Hitler?
That's exactly what I'm fucking saying, you dipshit.
Do you think Buck Angel should like...
Oh, he's getting
these
pissed.
Piece of shit.
He's getting pissed. Oh, he's getting pissed.
Oh, but
Oh, rage quit! Oh, that was quick. That was a quick escalation, you guys. That was a quick escalation. I forgot how rapidly that deteriorated. Jesus Christ. The Buck Angel Hitler question. The Buck Angel Hitler question. Bro, not the Buck Angel Hitler arc. Oh, wow, what a treat. Anyway, that's the gun tent, you guys. Alec Gunter, please stop talking about trans shit. Please, I'm on my hands and knees and begging you. I'll do fucking anything. Please stop. Anything. Stop it. Get some help.